you dumb, beautiful fucker.
Who wants to be in America's slash fic with Abraham Lincoln?
Louisiana Purchase, that's a name.
You need to really get off my balls, okay? I'm gonna kick your ass.
Also, why was Michelangelo so stinky? Ew.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 228 of All You Can Hear podcast. I'll be your host today, Patrick, and joining me today are my three cantankerous co-hosts.
Exploding in a ball of love, Colt.
I'm here. I'm Jonathan.
Bittersweet Wenzel.
And there's a lot of bittersweet flavors, a lot of flavors today. We're not talking about food, we're talking about movies. It's been a minute since we talked about movies. And today's gimmick is that we're doing what I've come to call first time, long time movie festival.
All right,
I'll take it. I mean, I couldn't come up with a name for it. Yeah, we were, I was taking Colt home. As we were driving, I was like, because we were struggling to come up with an idea for an episode, and I was like, I just got a brain blast, an episode idea. And I was like, why don't we each pick a movie, just one movie that either it's been a long time since we've seen or we've never seen at all. And we present it to everybody else, and we watch it, and then we split it up to where 2 one day, 2 the next, and then record. And Cole was like, that sounds like a good idea. And I was like, that sounds like a good idea. So I told them, and then we were like, yeah, let's do it. I kind of got it just from, like, whenever we do the album episodes. I was like, well, why don't we bring the same thing over for movies, you know? I know we haven't touched it because we're kind of afraid of touching stuff because of essential viewing, but, you know, why not?
So, like when so we each came to the table with a movie, and we'll be discussing in order the movies we watched. Now, we will say up front there will be full spoilers, or at least some spoilers in the discussion of this film, and definitely with, I would say, the third film we will be discussing on Sundays. There's like I would say a massive trigger warning for some of the content we'll be discussing, but we will have timestamps in the description of this episode. And so, if you need to like skip ahead or skip to a certain portion, we'll make that available to you on the final release in the description. But to go ahead and get us started, we'll discuss the first film, which Colt brought to the table. Colt, would you introduce the film, and we'll get started on the discussion of it.
The movie I brought to the table was Osamu Tezuka's Metropolis. It's the animated version of his Metropolis, which, if you don't know who Osamu Tezuka is, it's the creator of famously Astro Boy, and that's the only one that's coming to mind right now. But it's directed by Rintaro.
Kimba the White Lion.
Kimba the White Lion too. That is another one.
One of the most prolific and legendary manga creators and artists in general, let alone Japan.
And the director is Rintaro, which is a big director of anime from the 80s and 90s. The only one that's coming to mind right now is Captain Harlock and Space Odyssey or something. I just remember a very long... Galaxy Express, that's it. Very famous anime director. And one of the writers on it was the creator of Akira and all that great stuff. So it's got a lot of big names coming to the table with this movie. I picked this movie because I fucking love it, and I wanted to share it with everyone, and I thought everyone here would like it. And it turns out no one here liked it. Not even me the second time around.
Yeah, jokes on you, we didn't like it. We loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we loved it.
Fucking fantastic.
It was a really good movie.
It was spectacular, yeah.
I gotta say thank you to Jonathan for getting it for me for Christmas like 2 years ago, and I fucking love it.
So, yeah, again, big spoilers, because we're going to talk about it. I don't know if we should... I'm not going to spoil the film from the silent film, but it's also a film I think everybody should check out.
Yeah, I think the Osamu Tezuka's Metropolis was inspired by it to begin with, but from what I can tell, nothing related.
Yeah, stories are not the same at all.
I do know, since this is sort of like a combination, like adaptation of both this original silent film and Osamu Tezuka's work, but I would say it just inspired because it is like vastly different from both properties. But I will say for the film, it really adapts Osamu Tezuka's art style with his like very exaggerated caricature faces and like long kind of chunky limbs and like just like a lot of whimsy that comes with his work. And I do find it interesting that this movie was released after his death, and he's sort of famously not very kind to that work because he just wasn't very proud of how he made it.
Really?
Because like any artist, they'll make something, to a varying degree. They feel like it doesn't, and we're able to fully express like their feelings and emotion and ideas with it, and that's what Suzuka felt with his original manga, Metropolis. But I will say with this film, I thought it was just probably one of the most impressive animated films I've ever seen.
Oh, okay.
It was legitimately a feast for the eyes. There was so much color, so much detail. And I guess I misremembered because when I first watched it, I thought, I'm okay with this, and I like this. It was the 3D CGI stuff they had going on in it, and it looked way better than I remembered. It wasn't that big of a problem as I thought it would be.
Because this movie was released in 2001, so
it's
there
20
is
years old.
There is some CG animation in it, and like I would say it is more conspicuous in other places than others. But to me, it doesn't. I'm not taken out of the film by like the age of the CG. Like I still feel it's pretty congruent with like what's happening on the film.
Yeah,
it felt pretty seamless between the two. And like, I mean, especially like for the time, like it looks better than a lot of shows today, or even movies that incorporate traditional animation with CG elements.
And just with like some of the scale and set, like I don't know if it would have been possible for them to do this traditionally animated, or at least do it traditionally animated and have it come out in any reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
Because you can tell they already put so much work into it.
Yeah, especially with those buildings, like those were insane. And honestly, it's kind of interesting because with the original. The work it's based off of, Metropolis, it's like, the huge cityscape stuff was like painted, and like with this, it's kind of like, like it's a homage to that, but also it's kind of like, let's use the techniques of modern time, and I think it was implemented very well.
Yeah,
it was really good.
And like just sort of reference the whole movie is like this sci-fi like cyberpunk setting, but it's sort of combined with like the Art Deco style of like the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
So you have like this very like this showy glitz and glamour of like yesteryear, but like this like high future. I guess which I really do enjoy, sort of like the whole like ray gun punk, like kind of like sci-fi,
like Rocketeer kind of, yeah,
like that sort of era of like science fiction, and I think that is a great vibe with the film. And to me, one of the most impressive things of the film is just the sheer scale of everything in the movie. Like everything is enormous. Like all the buildings, all the sets are just like dwarf everything by comparison. And like when there's this funny thing in the film how they're sort of supplanting religion and God with just sort of, I guess, the reverence of like what mankind is built, but it loops back around to being like a literal like religion in itself.
Yeah.
And like when you see the scale and sort of like the imagery of the film, you can sort of understand like the fervor and sort of the awe that's inspired by it, that is likened to that of religion.
Yeah, like it's kind of like making a cult, out of a mad scientist. It's really cool. I like you said, I really enjoy that era. Especially like because I gotta draw comparisons because I really enjoyed Metropolis when I saw it last year, and like capturing that scale, beyond a painting was insane and awesome. And then like also too, it's like I don't know, it's something that's been bothering me. I haven't looked it up, but like because Metropolis was a silent film, it was in black and white. And then with this film, it's like we get all of this color. Like all of these buildings are so colorful. And then like at certain points of the day, all the buildings are gray, washed out gray, beige, brown, and stuff like that. So like I think those are nice little connections there. But like that colorful scenery. I'm curious, is that, was that the original intention, like harkening back, or if this is his own thing, which is cool either way, because it's still very much connected to the art of the time, especially with decoration and all of that shit, decor, obviously. Especially with also the huge, the religious significance, obviously with the huge, which is ziggurat.
The biggest building in the city.
Yeah, which is, I'm trying to think if that's what they called it in the film, or if they called it the Tower of Babel, but
they
definitely mention that.
They make comparisons, said it being the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
Compared, it's the tallest building in Babylon, and knowing the story of Babel and Babylon, and it's incredible fall. You're sort of they're sowing all these seeds that, despite the splendor and the ostentatity of the city, you realize just beneath its gilded surface is a city that's deeply entrenched in poverty and bigotry and injustice.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which was sorry, I got to get back into design a little bit, because that's what was so cool about the original one and this one, is that you have the story of the Tower of Babel being as ancient as it is, and then you have this, which is for the time supposed to be high future, but to us now it's retro. I just love that. I don't know what you'd call that. I don't want to say juxtaposition, but I just love that kind of that combination.
Yeah.
And but that was also something that I was really different from this film and the first one was I don't know what the manga is like. The manga maybe touches more on it, but in the original film it's mostly about the disparity between the working class and then the upper class. And with this, it was you still kind of get that, but it's kind of really very different in that there's the working class, the robots, and then the very high upper class, and then I guess the government would be part of that too. So it was kind of tackling a lot of different things, especially with the religious allusions as well.
I wanted to say something.
Sorry.
Before we get to story stuff, not just the visuals are great, the music, the sound, everything about that is great as well. I love the way they use is it big band?
Turn of the century big band.
Yeah. A lot of big band swing jazz.
There is
Yes.
one scene that's my favorite scene in the whole movie that uses Ray Charles' "Can't Stop Loving You." That is absolutely amazing, fantastic, every way you can describe something good, in my opinion. I fucking love that scene.
I will say I was kind of caught off guard when spoilers, just all this pandemonium happened and just Ray Charles is blasting.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I really enjoyed that the disposition of that, where that's this really upbeat song, and then the world is literally ending as around them.
I mean, it
Fallout
works
made an entire aesthetic
really,
around it.
really
Basically.
well in the scene that they're working with. Even though I don't like either of these characters, they're both shitheads, it's still applied very much so to their relationship, the old man and Rock.
Red.
And then it also applied to Tima and Kenichi as well. I thought it was really good there.
Sorry, I could not remember if his name was Kenichi or I kept thinking of the one guy from the other movie that we saw. Was his name Kenichi too?
Which movie?
The last one, Pom Poko.
Oh, there was
Spoiler.
Sochichi and Ponkichi.
Okay, I guess I'm just making stuff up. Anyway, back to this.
Wenzel can't keep the Japanese name straight.
A lot of characters are honestly thrown at us. But
I think sort of one of the things I love about this movie, and I think this might be a interesting place to start, is for a movie it's what, a little over an hour and a half, 100 minutes or
It's
so?
an hour 48.
An
It
hour.
was 108 minutes.
Yeah, for a movie that's relatively short, all things considered, the amount of major principal characters, the cast is pretty large.
Yeah.
And and it'll go through like these like it kind of flows like a piece of classical music in the sense of has these really interesting digressions that explore the world. And to me, I feel like the city Metropolis itself was more of a character than even a lot of the characters were. As we get like insight, as like the first thing you see is the big bombast.
That opening was sick.
And the ostentatiousness of the all. But once we like fully are introduced to Tima and start exploring like the underbelly, you start seeing a lot of like the darker, more pernicious aspects, and how all of that creates this really like interesting vibe. It reminds me a lot of the early and a lot of the early parts of Akira, where it is very much you're bouncing between these characters in certain stages of the city as it sort of is exploring the setting while all this stuff is happening. I don't know. I find that really cool. Like just the overall vibe of the movie.
Yeah, no, they have to because the city is so fucking massive. It's literally a metropolis.
Yeah.
And there's the upper part, which is basically the surface
Where the rich people live.
And then you kind of get like a little bit lower. It's like probably the middle where you're kind of getting into like you're about to touch the surface. Mm-hmm. That you could say is middle class.
And people who still have like some like
like
expendable capital, like some privilege. It's not as like polished and like glamorous, but people still have like a decent way of life.
Yeah, but then you get lower and lower, and that's where you get into like what is essentially the working class and like poverty,
like the slums.
But then a lot of them don't even have jobs because the robots have taken their places too.
Yeah, and then we have the robots, which are essentially a slave class. Too.
Yeah, like they're not even like they're not even considered people, and but it's like the way with our characters go and stuff. It's like to understand the city, the story of the city, of the people. You got to go down and work your way up, and I like that too. That's what also was really good about the original Metropolis as well, is that disparity between the working class and the upper class, and it was really well done, especially with the setting and like the theme, the aesthetic, and the same can be said for this too. I don't know if enough was confronted in the film that should have been, but still, I think well executed.
Yeah, and that's why I think this movie works better, more as sort of a vibe to feel out than necessarily like the plot. I'm not saying like the plot is any incoherent in any way, but it is definitely more like free flowing, like kind of more improvised like jazz, or has the feel of that.
Yeah, you can definitely see that because they're trying to tackle a lot of stuff. It's like there's a revolution going on, but then there's also the rights of robots. But then there's also a character who, spoiler, we meet Tima, who is robot but looks human, but is supposed to be human but is a robot.
She's meant to be. She was just like unearthly like robot that looks indistinguishable from human.
It was supposed to be the replacement of the main bad guy's daughter that they lost somehow.
Yeah. Tima is the if you look up the film, she's the basically the poster child.
Yeah, the girl, the blonde-headed, blue-eyed girl that you see on the front of the poster, and like how she was essentially created to be like this godhead for this new world that her father had created. And to me, it's just really interesting, like the world it's created, and like the lengths that somebody will go through to achieve what they want. Because you have like Duke Red, who, despite being like he's just a very exorbitantly wealthy man, and how he controls the city better than the military and the government. And you have other characters like Atlas, who's this like poor young man who is the de facto leader of this working class revolution, and how you see like he will go through lengths that are questionable to like help the very impoverished humans there, but at the expense of the suffering of robots.
Yeah, which is like the robots we get a lot of character with the robots as well. I really enjoyed that because in the original Metropolis there weren't any robots. So this was like, don't give me that look, Pat. Okay, you know. Okay.
What?
Anyway, go watch it if you can find it. But like, I was just so taken aback, and I fell in love with the robots easily because they're just such a, I don't know, they're just so fun. Like, you know, they're people too.
Like Fifi deserved better.
Fifi
So did
deserved
Pero deserved way
Pero
better.
deserved better, a lot better.
As soon as they got the robot, the string of numbers and letters as the robot's name, Pero's name, and then the uncle of Kenichi's like, first thing I see a dog, Pero. So you're now our dog, robot.
Yeah, that had a lot of very unfortunate implications.
Yeah.
Because Pero is a robot detective that they have loaned out to them because like Kenichi is his assistant to his uncle Shunshaku Ban, who is a Japanese detective who's come to sort of suss out some of the shadier dealings of this country of Metropolis.
Yeah, I guess we should talk about the plot.
Although I will say, on a little aside in Pero, my Toku brain was ticking so hard because this came out in 2001. He's very clearly based off the Showa era Toku series with Robot Detective K, like dark teal skin, the red lines, and like in the original series he had like kind of like globe yellow eyes. So like if you were to Google Pero Metropolis and then look up a picture of Robot Detective K, the Toku series, like it's like an almost 1-to-1 reference.
Hell yeah!
Like even Robot Detective K was the inspiration for Q from Street Fighter.
Oh wow!
Ooh. I was like, I know I recognize that design from somewhere, and then it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I felt like Pero was definitely felt familiar. Mm-hmm. That's also why I really liked his design as well. Yeah, so in terms of plot, basically, like we mentioned, this Japanese detective, and his nephew, who's assistant, they've come to Metropolis to find and investigate a man named Dr. Lafton. And Dr. Lafton is connected to Duke Red because Duke Red has commissioned him to build him his daughter, and her name is Tima. And then there is this, just the worst motherfucker
this stinky dumb poo baby.
This stinky motherfucker. This dumb.
Are you talking about Rock?
Buckets of turds in that little fucking head. Rock his name is Rock. And basically he's an orphan from a war. His parents were killed in a war, and he's an orphan. And Duke Red took him in and basically adopted him, but also doesn't treat him as his son.
Yeah, like he said, like, I adopted this kid, but I don't sort of see you as my son. Or just sort of like an extension of my power.
Yeah.
How the fuck are you going to adopt a kid and turn him into a Nazi and then say, I don't like you anymore?
The reason why Colt says that is because Rock is part of this party called the Marduk Party.
The
Marduk Party, but they're also the secret police of Duke Red. He leads it. And
heavy Nazi fascist image, like not even like
literally the Japanese detective is like, who are those fascists? Because they have literal red armbands with the Marduk symbol on it.
They look like the SS
basically. And what they do is they hunt down any robot who's not in their zone, who's doing something they're not supposed to, whatever. And I mean, no mercy. They just fucking kill them.
And you think like, oh, they're just killing robots, like who cares? But then, like when you see that the level of like violence that is visited upon robots, like this feels extreme even for quote robots.
Yeah, there's like cleaner robots just smashing windows because, well, we forgot to, or we didn't say anything yet about it. Captain Red, Duke Red has a giant laser that shoots at the sun that makes it have a solar flare event with which shoots out EMP waves towards the Earth, and it fucks with the robots, and that's where they start going violent, and that's what they use as an excuse to shoot at the robots. And there's just one cleaner robot breaking windows, and they absolutely unload on that thing, missing every single shot except for like 2, but they finally get
like
it.
Literally, you have like the secret police like firing like semi-automatic weapons into a crowd to like kill the robot. Because there's one scene where some of the worker robots are being like are like freaking out and they're being shot. Like you see like a father and his son like pressed against like a concrete pillar to avoid the bullets to kill the robots.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, to go to these links, and the reason why Duke Red, because he also have his own personal scientist that isn't hiding in the dark or whatever to create this invention, because the ziggurat is also part. It's like this giant tall tower, and it has, like Colt said, a device that basically causes solar flares, and the whole point of this is to basically he wants to rule the world, have it. Like have a gun to the head of the world, and but as a part of this, there's a throne, and so like okay, he wants his daughter, right? But like that's not just it. He wants his daughter, his artificial daughter, to sit on this throne for whatever reason to rule the world, and we find out the significance even more of this throne later, and man, I don't know, I just really. I really enjoyed the ziggurat design, just that whole idea right there.
Yeah, the 4 pillars and the main pillar in the middle.
Yeah, like
so cool.
Like the because Colt reminded me of this in Fallout 4. You have these like these kind of like godhead figures that are put onto buildings. It's very much like that retro, like high like upper class kind of Art Deco design. And it's almost cult-like. That's why I said Godhead. And then I think it's the same thing in this, but I don't think they're like person's heads. They look like birds, like hawks or eagles or something.
It's just like I don't know what they are, but they're really cool.
Yeah, they look really cool. So again, we have that homage to the original as well. I'm trying to think where do we go from.
It's kind of hard to like sit here and go through the film chronologically because it is kind of scattershot, and it has like a few plot threads that weave together, but they all start at completely different places.
Sorry, I completely forgot this one. The whole thing that really starts the chain reaction of everything is that Duke Red, because the scientist he has commissioned, Dr. Lofton, does his dealings underground, literally. So when he goes in there, Rock, his adopted son, follows him. And when he follows him, he goes in there and confronts the doctor and is like, I hate robots. It starts just...
Yeah, he's like, I'm only daddy's baby, okay?
Yeah.
I'm the baby daddy baby.
Yeah, he's a total
baby.
simp for his dad.
Yeah, he wants to fuck his
really
dad.
fucking weird. He's like...
Yeah, but also hates his dad, too.
Also hates, because he keeps saying Duke Red needs to sit on the throne, not this thing, looking at, I guess, which would be his, like, stepsister or whatever.
His robot stepsister.
Yeah, Tima, because Dr. Lofton's been taking a lot of time to work on her because she has to be, quote unquote perfect. But also it's because he wants to take her and basically have her be his daughter and then run away.
There's this weird like blurring of like human and machine, and like if he wants to like supersede like the rule of humanity, he finds like his linchpin to be like something that blurs that line. If he's like, I'm gonna transcend my role as just like a very rich, influential man to like going from just like a influential power on Earth to be like power over the heavens into space. Like it just like transcend like mortality, and for him to do that with his like robot daughter who died and she was reborn as this machine, this sort of inhuman human machine.
Were you talking about Duke Red?
Yeah.
Okay, I was talking about Dr. Lofton.
Oh.
I was just...
Dr. Lofton, he's a weird little fuck.
Yeah, no.
The pictures in the book, I think those were just like references for his work on Tima.
No, I know, but the thing is that, remember, Dr. Lofton was going to betray Duke Red because he wanted Tima for himself. That's what he said.
Well, basically, because like he's working like so hard to make this perfectly human robot, and then he has to just give it up to someone else to use.
Yeah,
like, be like, fuck that.
He considered it his masterpiece, but that was really good what you said, Pat. Yeah, he doesn't want to give that up, but then Rock's like, fuck you, so he shoots Lofton, and then he starts unloading on her, but she's able to get out because Oh man, I forgot about this scene. It was so cool. So the whole place catches on fucking fire, and Rock, being a little bitch that he is, runs away. And then the robots come over to help put it out. And there's a sick like little beat song that's put to it while the firefighter robots are coming there to put it out. It's really sick.
You see three initial robots sort of like come out to the blades, and you see like hundreds of these little like mouse bots like come out of the woodwork, and they all kind of like combine into like these kind of super structures. And they just shoot water out, which like in a very stratified like city where like fire trucks can't pass through. You have like these sort of like these cobbled together like Megazord type robots to combat the fire. It's a pretty neat thing.
Yeah, it's really cool, and that's where we see the detective and his nephew go in there because, they deduced that fuckers and Lofton's in there. So the detective goes to try to get Lofton, and then the kid tries to see if there's any survivors. Of course, finds Tima, and she's naked, and he puts her jacket on her, and then they fall? I think
they fall through to even the furthest level.
Yeah.
Where, no humans live. It's just like the robot class.
Yeah,
and
which
the only way they survived was Kenichi landed on his legs, and he caught Tima, and he didn't break his legs because his legs are solid steel.
Tree trunks.
Yeah.
Tree trunks. Yeah. Like this little boy has fucking tree trunk, massive thighs.
Important story development element is that Kenichi has thick ass calves. Like, no other character has calves this fucking thick. Just him.
Like, imagine how big Popeye's forearms are. That's how big this kid is.
Exactly.
And he had relatively normalish arm sizes for the characters in the show, and everybody else had like tiny core, big arms, big legs, but his legs were the mega legs,
like big arm, like very exaggerated like facial features, like noses, heads. Obviously, I will say even the big honkers on some of these characters is kind of restrained on some other Tezuka characters.
Oh yeah, because Duke Red has like literally a nose that takes up half of the fucking screen.
He looks like a fucking bird.
He does.
And there's a lot of avian imagery with sort of general Art Deco, and like in the film already, like him being the top of that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's so funny because Tima, like when you see her, she's part of the film, but like she looks so out of place because again, Kenichi with his thick ass fucking calves.
It's like her, like obviously she's still very stylized, but like her proportions are much more natural, and there's an extra level of like detail and animation given to her. Like there's a scene where the wind like ruffles through her hair. That's like,
all right, let's calm down. There was no wind. It was just her hair.
Like whatever.
No, I know it's wind.
You see like her hair is like very as if it's being blown by wind.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of like I guess higher power religious vibes with her because she stands under a beam of light. There's a point where she's looking over the city and like a dove lands on her shoulder. People literally think she's an angel because she has this unearthly like presence about her,
which is also a reference to the original Metropolis because the female lead in there was also seen literally the same way as an angel, as a disciple of God. So I really enjoyed that. That was a really good scene. I just think it's funny that anytime like a moment like that happens, there's no wind, her header's just flowing. Just and if I was Kenichi, I'd be like, what the fuck?
She just has like her own like air current.
Yeah, and she's like, what are you looking at me for? Look at your fucking legs. Like, yeah, and like
some tree trunk ass legs, but man,
like do arm day someday. Like, goddamn. We joked that whenever he was in his mother's womb, he was doing calf raises. Yep.
You just see his like feet push against her stomach.
Well, no, I was thinking like because babies will move in the womb, so it'd just be funny. It's like oh, I can feel him moving. It's like why is he doing this? Like it's repetitive, and then they like do a sonogram, whatever, to see what he's doing, and like all right, now we're gonna see your baby, and they're like, what is he doing? Like, I think he's doing calf raises.
You just hear like the clink of the weights, like clink, clink, clink.
Yep.
Clink.
Like damn. All right. But yeah, now the detective does find Lofton. Fucker's dying, and he's like, my book, and he's like, oh, your book's important? Takes his book, and then
just a book full of dried boogers, nothing good.
Yeah, nothing good. Takes it, leaves.
His ass with it.
Perro's just watching everything unfold. Well, no, he's not. He's literally can't do anything, but he's trying to keep everybody back. Which also, whenever we go see him get Pero and like Lonem, we learn about robots stuff. It's like robots have to have a specific writing. I think maybe it goes for all citizens. They have the specifically like, no, sorry, not humans. If certain humans don't have certain writing, I think even robots, they can go to whatever zone they want to. But if robots have, like, it says Zone 1, they can only be in Zone 1 or Zone 3 or however often.
But there's very strict, class lines where, like, they can't trespass.
Which, it's so funny because Pero walks so fucking slow. There is a point he does run, but there's a part in there where he's like, well, I have to go back to headquarters to get permission to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the entire time that it happens, I'm like, your nephew is dying. And Pero is taking his dear sweet fucking time. Because the detective...
Hell, even the uncle wasn't like a super...
I know.
It's like, oh, this is the top of my list. Let me just take my time and have some snacks.
Which was funny, too, because there was a part in there where there's ice cream nearby, and he swipes a little bit of it on his finger and licks it, and then does it again. And I'm like, I'm just losing my mind. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Then literally the vendor is like, you're not a kid, and like, you need to pay. So fucking good. And then he starts gobbling on a fucking glizzy.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, is that my nephew? This glizzy though.
Yeah, the vendor attacks him again. He's like, you gotta pay, bro. Yeah. Which is really fucking
just
funny.
munching on some dogs.
Yeah, and then Rock is losing his mind because he's like, oh fuck,
I love my dad. I just want to be the only child.
And I love killing robots. Like,
and there I go, killing again.
Yeah, we get introduced to one robot. It's part of a series called Albert 2's, but this one is named specifically Fifi, and it actually has parts of it put onto it. Like, it's been kind of like jerry-rigged and put together, so like you can kind of distinguish it from the rest. Love Fifi.
Because Fifi helps Kenichi and Timo when they fall into like the super sewers.
Yeah.
And then we get like real fucking pissed when like R.I.P. fucking Fifi takes care of them in the gunk in the goo, and then Rock just like fucking
executes fucking
Fifi.
Like literally anytime a robot shot is straight up an execution. Like they were just like popped in the head. Like they unload the whole clip, reload and fire
like
again.
Rock looks at Fifi, sunglasses, see the reflection, doesn't miss a beat, shoots Fifi right in the fucking head.
Point blank, too.
Like, does not fucking care. And Fifi, being the sweet robot that it is, was trying to, block the bullets from getting to them. Oh, so sad. Fuck.
No cinematic death in movie history compares to fucking Fifi.
No, because it was so violent.
They can kill 100 old yellows, I still wouldn't care.
No, we talked about that, too. We were like, well, never mind. Marley and me is sad. Hachi's sad.
Where the red fern grows.
Fuck.
I guess like certain dog deaths, maybe.
Why are you looking at that?
I don't know.
What are you looking at?
I came across something a while ago, and I'm just kind of startled.
What are you looking at, John?
I was looking up Azama Tezuka noses because I wanted to see how big these honkers could get. However, in the Google Images search, there is a picture of a YouTube thumbnail for an Azama Tezuka manga called Message to Adolf.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
And it's just kind of this funny little.
John's have that on their image for the past 10 minutes, and I'm like,
well, I've been trying to interject, but I was like, y'all
okay.
kept going.
I don't know anything about it, but I've seen it on book sites and stuff like that. This image is weird because it's clearly someone's avatar
who looks like a chubbier version of the lead singer of A Day to Remember.
And the image of the book itself, it looks like if the Necronomicon from Evil Dead had Adolf Hitler's face
basically.
on it. It's just a weird image.
Yeah.
But just a bit on the characters. What I think is so cool about Osamu Tezuka is that how he reused his characters throughout just his life and his career. How there'll be explicitly the same character design because he uses this thing called the star system, where basically he envisioned his manga series as movies, and he considered his characters to be actors, and they would turn up again and again. How Atlas, the revolutionary leader, is it's the same name and design of a robot and Astro Boy.
Oh, okay.
But like their goals are reversed. So At was about the proliferation of robots and sort of diminishment of humans, and it's the reverse for humans to robots. And it's like Shinchaku Bond, like the detective. He is like a very like recognizable recurring character in Tezuka's work. Like like Tezuka just like took this bit and. You can kind of think of that like as like a Tezuka verse in a certain manner of speaking, like to the point where he even kept up with like the fictional salaries of what these characters would make in the individual work and how they were like presented. Because some obviously they would be like a main character in one, they're sort of like a side character in another, and it's really cool to see someone just reuse their character like that. It has a very like creative system like that.
Yeah, that's very fun.
I kind of wish more creators would do that.
Yeah, it's a very fun thing. I mean, actually, I know someone who does, and that is the creator of Fairy Tail. He just reuses the same fucking design for every fucking series.
I mean, there's some characters that especially like like the little carrot nosed dog character.
Yeah, that one I'm fine with it, but like the main character in his newest manga series is literally just fucking Natsu or Gray from Fairy Tail in a different color palette. Fine, sure.
Like obviously, having a limited design in your work is different than like, oh, this is like a distinct design that's reused. I guess you can sort of say how some people could criticize like Araki and JoJo, how like his faces are very
similar.
One note, how they're like outside of their bodies and costumes, everybody kind of has like a very similar face.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's very aware of that. He's like, yeah, my characters have the same face.
Yeah, but then
he makes up for it with their
clothes.
outfits.
Yeah,
yeah,
pretty sick.
And their fucking powers.
I guess kind of touching back though on like religion, myths, what have you. With Babylon, like the whole thing about that was that like God had it made where everybody spoke a different tongue,
which is funny as shit. Like, just imagine you're at work one day building a tall building, and then all of a sudden if someone's like Rabbit Scabber, Bebop Bobo, and you're like, what the fuck? And all of a sudden the building falls. That'd just be funny as shit.
Like, I'm not wrong, right? Like, I'm not.
That's the Tower of Babel.
The story of the Tower of Babel was these people were like, yo, you know what would be fucking sick if we built this giant fucking tower to talk to God.
Mm-hmm.
And then God was just like, you know what? I'm going to be an asshole today. And then starts giving people different languages.
After he smites the tower.
After he smites the tower, and then they're just like, well, I guess we're...
They all talking. They're talking like Animal Crossing characters.
Well, I thought they built the tower to challenge God because it was such an incredible like.
Either way, God was offended.
Yeah, God's like, can't come up
construction feat, which with the ziggurats and stuff, they're pretty incredible. But no, I just like that, like, the situation's kind of different in this where God gave that after, but like with this, it's like, there is more or less, I wouldn't say miscommunication, but there's like the upper class, the lower class, they all speak the same language, but it's like they're
separated.
They're separated. There's no communication. There's barriers and
capitalist alienation.
And then it's just that. Sorry. No, I keep thinking about this one bit. Okay, so we're gonna skip to the end a little bit. Remember when Tima fucking dies? Spoiler.
Remember when like Tima fucking dies? Like,
no, I just
crazy, right?
No, I keep thinking it would be so funny if like Kenichi is just like, he's like, I'm never gonna let that happen again because she slipped right through his fucking fingers. So from then on, he starts fucking doing arm day, ab day. I don't know. It was like so funny to me. Okay.
He just does all upper body. He's like, I learned today that my lower body has betrayed me. Now it's just time for upper body. And he's just the top heaviest motherfucker.
And I just imagine a very disgusting Popeye.
Yeah. Like it's like Kenichi, like all grown up. Well, it's interesting. Like, we're definitely kind of off the linear path of the pot. But anyway, I found out that apparently in the American release of the DVD, they cut out like a little like stinger picture at the very end. Because apparently at the very end there was a scene that ties back to the last shot of the film, which is the little radio that Tima found. It plays like a line of hers. In this sort of little like after credit scene, you see Kenichi all grown up in like a little shop with Tima rebuilt. So like there's an implication that he either found enough of Tima's parts to rebuild her, but there's also like the ambiguities. Like, is she just a window dressing in his shop that doesn't have her, soul quote anymore?
Yeah.
Or is he just like she's back to her old self?
I think I like that. I like that ending.
That's interesting.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's weird how they cut
I guess we
that.
should explain too, because there was like basically what felt like an Akira moment where everybody kind of gets reunited. Tima gets reunited or Duke Red finally meets Tima, and he's like, "Fuck you, Rock." And then takes away his fucking, thing. Oh, yeah, the revolution does not work. The government actually gets overthrown.
Everybody's dead.
And Pero dies terribly, by the way.
Yeah, because
Just gets shot in the face
Atlas,
instantly.
leader of Revolution, is like, fuck robots, and just caps them. And, like, I do think it's interesting how... I always appreciate in the media when they show, like, a revolutionary army or, like, an uprising group that... Even within like this very genuine plight, there's a lot of like dark emotions and like very fractured, I guess, realities. So like, yeah, you can sympathize with their plot, how like they're genuinely being like downtrodden, but also you understand that people in their desperation will do very desperate and dangerous things. Because even Pero's like, hey, why are y'all doing this violently? Isn't there another way we can figure this out? And it's like, violence is the only way we can do this now. It's the only option we have.
Yeah, because Pero questions humanity, which we very much should. Is that why do you have to resort to violence? It's a very good question.
Well, and also too, they're sort of falling for the ruling class's trap of like, it's like, well, the robots are the real problem, but it's not the robots' fault.
Yeah, because
and so there's this sort of working class animosity.
Yeah, I mean, the robots didn't ask to be built. They didn't ask to be born, but they are. And now they're here.
Yeah.
And so, like, they shifted the ruling class, did the discontent of the working class to, like, this even more subjugated class. It's like, see, it's there. They took your jobs. Not that there's not enough jobs and that there are resources being withheld from you. It's all because of these other guys' fault. And once they're sort of focused on something else, and they don't fight the bigger problem. If the robots and humans work together, then they could take
that. Would be another fucking story. Because we see so many just like, you don't really see the upper class attacking the robots. You always see the lower class attacking them in alleys, beating the shit out of them, doing what have you to them. And there's an even interesting moment where Pero finds one of them, and then he like connects the very last like point of memory, I guess, from that robot to his, and the robot is trying to warn other robots of what's going to happen, which I thought was an interesting point. And then it brings me back to Pero talking to the leader, and it's like, even though the robots we've seen so far, they're very programmed, robotic, obviously, kind of, we see a little bit of like,
There's different level of sentience even amongst the robots.
Yeah, like that's starting to change, and we really I really like the questions that were posed by Tima whenever we finally get that moment, because skip ahead, Tima is again meeting Duke Red, and Duke Red's like, you gotta be on the throne now, and then Detective is like he's like, I'm gonna open the whole charade, and then he gives him the notebook or whatever. They're all in the tower, by the way. Again, Rock has been stripped of his fucking shit.
My Nazi armband!
And his position and everything.
And just like any sort of like fucking fascist or Nazi, he's just a fucking petulant child.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. And so they're all kind of meeting in the throne room to do this, and even Rock at some point is dressed as a maid, tries to shoot Tima in the head.
Which is a fucking wild ass scene.
It was wild, yeah.
Can you see, like, you're introduced to her maid earlier, and then he's just like, psych, bitch, like, pulls off perfect latex mask. It's like, ha, Dad, I'm a drag queen. I had my dick tucked between my behind my leg for 3 hours for this bit. You'll love me now.
And then he's like, let me get it out. Like, I need to adjust it. So he adjusts it. That was actually a 5-minute scene, by the way. No.
Of him, like wiggling around.
Yeah.
Also, this motherfucking Rock will not die. like
Oh,
shot, beat up, dropped, every fucking thing you can imagine to this fucker. Still doesn't die.
You know, it was funny though because when we're first confronted with Rock, Tima, Kenichi, and Duke Red, Rock just kicks Kenichi in the stomach really hard once. Kenichi's dead.
Yeah.
Like Kenichi is laying face down in the snow, not moving whatsoever. We honestly thought the detective died because Rock shot the detective, no hesitation, just shot him. But he shot him in the arm, and then he hits Kenichi once, and Kenichi's just like, "I'm dead." Like, goddamn.
It's like what a wimp this 9-year-old boy is. Am I
But
right?
I mean, yeah, because like then later, I mean, I get it, he was drugged, but later,
This
later,
9-year-old boy's a beta cuck. That's what you're saying to me?
Such a beta male, am I right? Fucking, you see, Rock is the true Sigma.
shut the fuck up. God damn.
So you see like the hierarchy, like beta bitch, Kenichi, alpha male, Rock, Sigma, Giga Chad, Pero.
Sigma grind set right there.
Okay,
baby.
well that's because
Sigma
Para was
grind
awesome.
set.
Awesome.
Sigma grind set.
But
God, these words are just gibberish.
God, what the fuck is going on?
I fucking hate reality. I want it to be erased.
That's why I love watching movies.
You're being too quiet. I need you, whenever you get into a room, I'm going to need you to start screaming. I need you to, like, be louder. Moan for me. And that's how you'll get more people to like you, and you'll just be a better speaker in public. I'm a motivational speaker.
What the fuck is he talking about? I have no idea what that was.
I thought it was just me tripping balls, but nah, it's
Maybe we're all tripping. Like, I don't... What the...
I say
literally like Colt was just like Rabber did scabbard, and then we're just like, what? And he's looking at us like we're crazy.
I don't know. I was speaking facts, okay?
I don't... What fact?
There was not a single coherent thing that was strung together by those
You just
words
said
that
you just
used.
said you're a speech coach, and you said moan when you're in a silent room.
Sigma grind set, baby.
Public speak, whatever. Anyway, yeah, Rock gets shot, doesn't die for some fucking reason, and
Has a building fall on him.
Kenichi is so fucking tired. Tima asks some really good questions.
Hey, Duke Red, why are you such a bitch?
No, yeah, because like she's like, because Duke Red is saying like, but you're not like the other robots. It's like, but I'm a robot. It's like, well, technically, yes, you're a robot. It's like, but I'm human. It's like, no, you're not like the other humans.
You're superhuman, but you're a robot.
You're a robot. You're not like the other humans who are trash. Like,
and you're not like the other robots that are trash.
yeah, it's like, but like, then what am I? And that's where she gets pissed. And basically, like I said, Akira moment where she takes the throne and she combines the supercomputer, which like it was insane. The room looked insane, and she commands all the robots to just start attacking everybody. And she also attempts to destroy the world because she's connected to all the Earth's weapons. Kenichi stops her, but he doesn't end up saving her. And then, Rock is like I'd ever let these trashy robots get my father. Presses a button. Whole fucking thing explodes. And like Colt was saying, that song was just perfection.
He's like, I'm the only one that can kill me is me. And he explodes the reactor of the building, destroying the whole city. All of Metropolis is absolutely fucking leveled.
Like literally, this building is so big that the debris destroyed. Like I would say 100 million people died conservatively.
because the thing is like the day after or the morning after, found out Fifi survived, replaced the pieces, but this is where we kind of get into my favorite. Also, one of my favorite parts of this film is the ambiguity of the ending, because all of the robots are there. Fifi, they all found Tima's parts, but then they all start saying Tima, like that, and that's where I asked Colt, well, like, are they saying they're trying to find and rebuild Tima, or are they? Did she? Because for a moment she connects to every robot's robot. Did she put her consciousness and split it up?
Like when she hacked into the mainframes, like this bitch went full Matrix, and then like when she's connected to every single facet of technology and machine in the city, is like was there like a ghost of her left behind?
Yeah, because we also
is she a ghost in the shell?
No, actually, they whenever Tima fell from the top of the ziggurat. She landed and she was fine. The robots ripped her limb from limb and just paraded her body parts around town. And they gave the heart to Kenichi. And then they bragged about it. In the end.
Fuck. Now that is actual scene is they gave to Kenichi the heart. But that's where it was interesting because then we also get the shot of the radio because that was something that Tima was just really enjoyed was this little radio that she found in a junk pile. And then we hear her, like you said, we hear her voice, which I think that if we would have gotten that one shot that you were talking about, or the one scene, I think that would have kind of like, it would still been ambiguous, fuck. But I think it would have kind of like resolved like, okay, maybe they found her parts and built her back. But it's just so funny too because like you said, estimate 10 million people just died or 100 million because the only living things we see that aren't living or the only moving things, I guess, are the robots.
You do see a few people.
No, I don't believe
but
that.
But what I thought was funny is that literally this entire city is just fucking pandemonium rubble, and then it's like everybody dance.
Yeah, the robots start dancing. Kenichi is with them. The detective uncle flies away smiling, and it's like you're looking at a destroyed fucking super city.
Yeah, the whole city gets fucking destroyed. Kenichi's like, Uncle, I want to stay here. And the uncle's like, fuck yeah, bye. I'm out.
But also, too, that plane's taking off. What airport is surviving from all that shit? Like, the plane looked cool, though.
It was
a
massive.
pretty cool little
It was
plane.
massive, yeah. It was really great movie. I love the allegories and the homages to the original film. Great animation. I don't understand some people's disdain for 3D in this. Great art. Just a good, really good movie. I enjoyed that very much. That interpretation.
Could have used more Simpsons, but it was good.
What?
Anybody else have any opinions
closing
on it?
thoughts
Just
about
closing
Metropolis?
thought. I really enjoyed it. I really like we said earlier towards the beginning. Like every shot is dense with things going on, almost to the point where me like I was getting sensory overload.
Like, you can like stop any frame of the film and just sit there and just look
at
everything.
Yeah.
And like. And a lot of animation, especially especially TV anime, like you'll see the subjects in the foreground will be moving, but everything in the background is just like really still. But like every single thing is moving in every single frame.
It's the foreground, the midground, the background. There's always something happening.
It's machinery, it's life, it's everything.
And like all the people, all the incidental like crowd people, they all look distinguished and like unique to themselves.
Yeah, there's not really much repeating. Like it's really like the city's alive, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, like I said in when I was talking about Evangelion, the Evangelion rebuild films, it's the same thing. Every time there's a frame, there's something going on, and my eyes they hurt and my head hurts.
It's just that gif of Madara from Naruto. His eyes like zipping around.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Like I was literally thinking the same thing. It's just it's so there's so much stuff, and got to give them credit for that as well.
Do you want to give our star ratings for the film?
Sure, we can.
All right, Cole, give us yours.
On first watch, whenever I first watched it, I gave it 4 stars. This time around, I liked it a little bit more, so I upped it up to 4.5 out of 5.
All right.
I gave it 4 stars. I really love the setting. I love a lot of the technical aspects and sort of the thematic things it touches upon. I just wish the characters were a little more engaging to me. Some of them were a little tropey, but nothing any like super offensive or bad. It was just like that could have been fleshed out a little more type of thing.
Sure. Yeah. I gave it 4 stars. Again, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. I basically kind of feel the same way about it that I felt about in terms of rating Metropolis, but I like this more than that's the silent film. Again, technical aspect great, animation's great. Just the thematic stuff, I kind of wish you kind of get that some of the base stuff, but I kind of wish there were certain things that were like touched upon, more fleshed out. But they were able to kind of get it close, so I can't harp on it too much.
For me, it was 4.5 out of 5. It's just like it's like a candy store for the eyes. Like I just couldn't get over the technical and artistic craft that's involved with this.
Hell
film.
yeah.
And I guess I don't really have too much like in qualms with the plot. I guess there's like a few moments that kind of feel like the plot is a little laggy here and there, but but not nothing severe. Like they tighten it up a little in a spot or two, but that's just my opinion. It's still like a absolute marvel to watch.
Oh yeah.
If you're kind of just like tuned out on the plot, whatever. Like if nothing else, you can't deny just the visual impressiveness of it.
Oh yeah,
yeah. If, even if I wasn't paying attention, I feel like I could come away with that film with like the same rating just because of how beautiful it was.
Yep.
So I think that wraps up our discussion with Metropolis. So we're going to take a quick break and be right back with you with discussion of our second film.
Welcome back, everybody. Part 2 of the First Time, Long Time Movie Festival. And with this one, we're try to contain ourselves a little bit more. We hope you enjoyed the first half with Metropolis being very explorative in our discussion, but we still want to hit all the major points of the last 3. So we keep it moving right along, and we have our second film, which is Wenzel's pick. Wenzel will introduce the film that you brought to the table.
Fantastic Mr. Fox, directed by Wes Anderson. I had the Criterion of it. I got it forever ago because I was like, I need to pick this up. It's Wes Anderson. I love Wes Anderson, and I've been meaning to watch this for quite a while, and I thought this was a great opportunity to watch that. It's, as far as I can tell, especially when it was advertised, was kind of a children's film, and it seems like fun, and it's Wes Anderson, so I gotta watch it. It's essential. And after watching it, yes, I think everybody needs to watch it who also wants to watch Wes Anderson, or just because it's a really good film. It's kind of done in stop motion. The characters, they're like these little
these very like anthropomorphic woodland creatures. Like, do they have like little like suits and ties and like clothes and stuff? But they're at the same scale as they would be as an animal.
Yeah,
to, like real world,
which really threw me off because I thought it was just going to be kind of like a world where these animals have, they're not humans, so like they're kind of like are like shape and size, but no, humans still very much exist, and they are still very much the same size as they are in real life. Yeah. So.
Before we get into like details, like for the rest of the cast, like. Do you have any notions of the film going in, or just like was this y'all's first time seeing it as well?
This is the first time I've seen it. Yeah, I remember whenever the trailers were playing on the TV, I was like, "Whoa, this looks really fun! This is fun! I'm 10 years old. I'm 10 years old. This is so cool." I never watched it until now, and I'm kind of glad I waited because it's not purely a kids' film. There's some jokes for the adults out there. I'll say that. It's got some, let's say, adult themes sometimes.
There's definitely like some, nothing's like objectionable. There's definitely like some darker like themes. Just the way the movie's presented, and I guess maybe the plot. Like it's ostensibly a children's film. Although I don't know if this would hold the attention of like the average kid. I don't want to like talk down to the child, but also like I don't know how well this would appeal to like the average kid.
I just know if I watched this when I was 10, I would I'd still enjoy it, but probably not as much. I'd just watch it for a pretty picture.
Yeah.
Go ahead. This was the first time I had seen the movie. I remember the trailers very vividly when it was in theaters and being very unsettled. Because the little, it's not claymation, but the little stop motion dolls they're using kind of look taxidermied too.
Yeah, they look.
So it kind of it has this really unsettling quality about it. And personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Wes Anderson, and it's more so just like I appreciate what he does and his part of film culture, but that's just not me. So, like, I've seen, like, Grand Budapest Hotel. I wasn't, like, a huge fan. I thought Moonrise Kingdom was okay. But I really fucking enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really fucking fun.
This is my second time seeing it. I watched it, like, oh, God, like, maybe... It's been over 10 years. Like, I saw it randomly on, like, AMC or something. It was on TV, like, regular cable TV.
Wow.
And I was just like, this is very weird and surreal, but I'm liking it. And one thing I just thought was so funny, how everyone just speaks at this like pace that's just whip fast and like has a cadence that's not really normal, but like because you're in this like fantastical world, like you sort of roll with that punch. And like I really appreciate all the film's eccentricities.
Yeah, well, like how like Tarantino's dialogue has a certain flow to it.
That's Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson definitely has a type of style that's not like it kind of is this like unnatural naturalness.
Yeah, it's so fast, but I can comprehend and understand everything as it's popping at and attacking me.
And it's like really like sharp, witty writing. Too.
Yeah.
A lot of times where it'll take like a second for me to be like, oh, that's what that is, and by that time there's been like 10 different jokes.
Yeah, because like that's also part of it too. Is like it's very humorous, it's very fun. It's all like the way they speak is kind of like I don't want to say it's like cool, but it's like it's so like smooth. So like even though it's like going really fast, it's kind of like it's just like you can get it.
Imagine like what a film student thinks is cool is Wes Anderson.
Was some shot fires here?
Wes Anderson is cool, but okay. And then also, our main character is Mr. Foxy. He's a fox, and he's played by George Clooney. He's voiced by George Clooney, and so that's why also I think it's kind of weird for this to be a children's film because the way George Clooney speaks and Wes Anderson's form of writing, it's so like. I don't know if this could keep any child's attention span. Like,
yeah, like it's not so much that there, like Pat was saying, there's anything like inappropriate for children to see, but like I couldn't imagine being like, under the age of 12 and like thinking that anything about this movie because it's almost like it feels like a director who's most notable for these like. Compelling like
art house
type of adult dramas that have like a level of absurdity to them try to like contain himself to a family movie and it's kind of weird. I would be interested in see how Isle of Dogs compares to this
and plus like I do appreciate like if it isn't like or it may have been marketed as a family film because like it's stop motion. It was sort of like separating animation as just a strictly child fare, family fare, because like that's something I see a lot in art circles is like you can have like very rich, cromulent ideas and like difficult subject matter and sort of like tackling these themes and in an animated setting and it doesn't dilute the content at all. Like just because it's animated or stop motion doesn't make it less than.
Yeah.
Well, and not even necessarily like mature in like a 90s comic sort of way, but like genuinely like more like emotionally mature writing.
Yeah.
You don't really see that a lot in animation.
And with this, it just it hit the nail on the head for me. Like with just being fan-fucking-tastic.
Oh.
Like
it's almost like the title was prophetic, bruh. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic Mr. Fox.
Like because like also the child friendly aspect is that instead of saying cut, like instead of actually cussing, they say cuss.
They place any like applicable swear word with the word cuss instead of like are you fucking kidding me? Are you cussing kidding me?
Are you cussing kidding me? Or what the cuss? Or are you cussing me right now? It's so good.
And I could see how that might get on someone's nerves, but I find that little eccentricity really like charming.
Yeah, me too. I thought that was great. I was like man, this is like big brain shit right here.
And a bit where you were doing earlier is like how like even though these are all like animals and they're like in this very like human world, but there's like all these little like nods, like, oh yeah, they're just still animals. Like whenever they eat, it's just like just like noisy, like ravenous gobbling.
There's so many crumbs.
they're just like trying to shovel in this food as much as they can. It's like having that, because it's like very like proper society of these like cartoon animals, and they're just like gobbling like trash monsters.
Yeah, because for this film too, we have like the basic gist of it is that this Mr. Foxy is having to kind of like rein in his animal instincts, which is being a fox, being tricky, because his wife, played by Meryl Streep. Yeah, Meryl Streep. They end up having a family because she's pregnant, so they have a little kid who's kind of a weird little dude.
He's kind of a little beta bitch male.
His name is Ash. I love him though, but it's just so funny because I'm like, I think he's a teenager, but then like he fucking pops up and he's like, why are you wearing, like his dad's like, why are you wearing a cape? And wears a cape like for like the entire film, and I'm just like, why is he wearing a cape? Obviously to implement his favorite hero, which I think there was a poster for called White Cape. Like it was just, I love Ash
because like Ash being like Mr. Foxy's son, like he's this eccentric kid, or he's wiggling their hands different. Like that's how they always describe him. They wiggle their hands for a second. It's like, oh, he's different. And him just feeling inadequate, like next to like his father, like the legends of his father, and like his seemingly outwardly perfect and accomplished cousin that comes to stay with him,
Christopherson.
And like Christopherson, like he's perfect at everything, but like he's not intentionally showing off. Like, oh, I'm better than you. Like
he's just genuinely like a wholesome dude
who just happens to be
really good
at everything.
Yeah. And I don't know. I really like I really enjoyed their moments, because even with their moments where Ash was kind of being a little shit, it was just still kind of fun, and like like he just would not lay on the fact that his dad was in the hospital. Like Jesus Christ, Christopherson's their cousin, or his cousin, and he has to go stay with him because his dad's in the hospital for double pneumonia. Christopherson looks like he's like what, an Arctic fox?
I thought maybe a fennec fox.
I was thinking that too. I don't know.
The ears on his big, but like the kind of the shape.
Yeah,
of the face
yeah, you're
reminds
right.
me
He's a
of
fennec.
fox.
Especially with like how like kind of skinny he is, but also he's taller than Ash. So, but anyway,
They also live in a nice tree that comes with a best friend,
Kylie.
Kylie.
The possum.
Kylie is a possum who is like kind of fixing up the place or whatever, and
They're living handyman, family best friend.
His living handyman who also fishes for minnows.
And also he has a great bit where he will just stare like with hypno like spiral eyes at the camera, just like at random bits.
and it's usually like when like Mr. Fox or anyone's going off on this tiny monologue, and then they turn him, are you listening? And he just like zoned out.
But then like he like nods and he's like do something so I can make sure this is getting through to you. Like, it's so good. And like we see there, because like again Mr. Foxy is trying to rein in his animal instincts, so he has a family. He buys basically a house, which is a tree. He has a job working as a
real estate. No, he works for the paper.
Yeah, newspaper. And
you've read my column, you probably haven't.
And but to kind of like get back to his animal instincts, he kind of goes on these little trips, little heists with Kylie to the three farmers who live across from
their
them.
big factory farm,
Yeah.
and him trying to like relive his glory days, because like it was cut short with like the birth of his son, so he never got to like have like this proper closeout. He never got like his thief flowers, so to speak. And so for him sort of to assuage his own ego, he's like taking these bigger and bigger risks, and like putting his like family at exposure and at risk, and like it comes to a head, and literally the entire like woodland is run out because like he fucked up. He played too hard.
Yeah, and it's really good. Really, it's so funny. Like, man, when I watched it, I knew I was gonna have a good time. I had a great fucking time. I could not stop laughing. It was so fucking good, because there's also a moment too where like we're reminded Mr. Foxy. He's like, Kylie's like, "Are you scared of wolves?" And he's like, "No, I have a phobia of wolves." Like that's the same thing,
well,
but
like there's some sort of distinction between
and then later he does encounter a wolf, and he's like, "Oh, look at that, so beautiful." He's like, "Hello," and he's like, maybe he doesn't speak English. He's like, "Oh," he starts speaking French, and then he's like, "Vulpus vulpus, canis lupus vulpus vulpus," and then like at some point he's just like,
just like fist in the
there,
air.
and then the wolf is like fists in the fucking air, and I'm like, yeah, we all cheered.
And it's just a funny bit because like they're escaping from like the bad guys, and it's just like this aside is just like it's stuck right in the middle. It just kind of comes out of nowhere, and then when it's over, it's just like as if it never happened.
Yeah, and man, it's just such a terribly fun film.
I really appreciate how it balanced comedy and drama. There's some like really like great like comedic writing. There's also like some really sort of tense like drama, like when his wife finally has enough of Mr. Fox's ways, like in a beautiful shot. Like you see Foxy and his wife on like this thin little bridge, and there's like a waterfall behind them.
It's fucking up all of our eyes.
It's just like because like it's moving and they're standing still, so it's this optical illusion. And she has this like moment of regret where like I never should have married you, and it's like, oh fuck, this is real. This is real.
Yeah, it was really like tender and sad.
Realizing like just because they may have gotten married, but feel like were they actually like meant to be? It's just like, oh, they just got pregnant.
Yeah,
but somehow they make it work in the end, and like I just love all the characters. It's just a really, really. I forgot how fun the movie was.
It's so good, and again, I have the criterion of it, so I really want to like when I get a chance go back to it because it comes with a little booklet that kind of like has an essay about it, and there's also a bunch of just like additional stuff for it because it's such like you said, it like balances drama and comedy. It's such an interesting film also just for Wes Anderson. It's just another just masterpiece from him. I'm glad I finally watched it. I know we've been talking, but what about everybody else?
I really liked it. Kylie, baby. I like Kylie a lot.
Kylie is baby.
I love possums, so any possum character I'm going to automatically love. I love these scenes when they're just digging underground because it's like super
it has this
flat, but like 3D as well. I really like that.
Yeah, it has this very Scooby-Doo type of quality.
Yeah.
Well, they're all like sitting in a line, like digging down to like this like anthill like perspective, like underground, and it has like this like bluegrass music playing like, as they're like running away from like the farmers and stuff.
Fuck, yeah, one of the characters, he starts doing like a bluegrass song, and he's like, I just improvised it on like his boss gets pissed at him. It's like, but that was a fun song. Like can't capture the Fox.
You're just speaking gibberish. It's like that's not real music.
Yeah, like improvise. Like a lot of music's improvised. What are you talking about?
And that takes great skill to like just make up shit as you're singing it, and like it still be fun and like Wayne Brady's career.
I mean, seriously.
Also, another thing I really liked was whenever the farmer sent a note to the animals, he cut out letters in the magazine, and they're like, "Why do you do that?" He's like, "Oh, it's because we don't want to, so that we don't figure out who it's from." But he says his name's signed right there.
He's like, "Oh yeah, they did sign it."
And then whenever they sent a response letter, they did the exact same thing. He's like, "Why they cut out the letters from a magazine?" It's like, "'Cause you did." And he's like, "Whatever."
One bit I loved is like when they're getting ready to do their big getaway, and you see them run over to like a motorcycle with a sidecar, and then like a one that's this human side, and then the one that's their side runs out from behind it.
And it's so good because it's not explained. It's just kind of there, and it's
just
like,
a gag.
And it doesn't need to be because a bunch of fucking talking animals. Like, who gives a shit?
Also, that one psycho farmer who had donuts filled with foie gras.
Oh
God.
fuck. Ugh.
Which is like that sounds like the most repulsive.
It sounds fucking disgusting.
liver
And that's
donuts.
all they eat. That's all they eat.
Because like one fucker eats like 12 whole chickens a day. Then the
3
other-
for breakfast, 3 for lunch,
Three
3
for
for
dinner,
dinner, and I
then-
think 3 for snacks or something
Or
like
dessert, something like
that.
that.
Yeah, 3 for dessert.
Yeah.
and then like the one fucker eats donuts filled with foie gras, which is like fatty goose livers, and the other fucker just apparently subsists off of almost nothing but alcoholic cider.
It's really interesting.
Which is like their meal is based off like what their farm produces.
Yeah.
William Dafoe played a rat.
He did play a
did.
rat.
He was that little sneaky little bitch.
Fucking rat. Speaking of the digging, though, there were the parts in there where they got to dig under like each, I think, farm with all the other animal members. It was so good because as soon as they get into the compound, they just start dancing. It was so fucking good.
That's like how they like owned them. It's just like, we're going to come in your joint and just start dancing.
it's so good.
Obviously, this is it's a lot of fun, very quirky, very eccentric. Wes Anderson has like his big fans, and may not be for everybody, but I feel like this is worth checking out. Personally, I gave it 4 stars. I had a great time. I can't really say like any one thing I did or didn't like, but that's kind of just like the vibe I felt. The Give was a 4, but
Yeah.
very strongly recommended.
You could see that.
4.5 stars. I really, really loved it. I love Isle of Dogs more, but this was a very, very fun time.
I really enjoyed this. This out of everything I've seen from Wes Anderson, which is admittedly not a lot, this is definitely far and away my favorite thing he's done. I gave it a 4.5. I thought it was really enjoyable.
Hell yeah. I loved it, and with how much I've seen of Wes Anderson, which kind of isn't a lot either, but in comparison, I give it 5 stars, and I put it up there with Grand Budapest. I really, really liked it. I loved it. It was great. It was a great time.
Very nice.
Now we move on to something more painful.
Yeah, this is definitely the more content sensitive portion of the show. Blanket trigger warnings for like sexual assault, violence, and things of that nature. It's a very strong film, but also it comes with a lot of strong themes and content. So viewer discretion advised for people who are more sensitive to things like that.
Yeah, we'll provide timestamps to skip this if you.
Yeah, especially if you want to just watch it yourself and see about it, and
'Cause definitely with this film, while we sort of gone into more details on the other, this is very much dependent on viewing. Like to me, like with the subjects of the film, with true sort of the mystery and the revelations of it, it deserves to be watched for those who think they'll be able to sit through it. But just going forward, we will be discussing strong spoilers in addition to everything else in this segment.
yeah.
All right, and so this was Jonathan's film. If you would please introduce it and start us off.
Apparently, I was just said I'm not going with the theme that these dudes are doing. I'm going really fucking depressing. I chose 2010 film by Denis Villeneuve, Incendies. I've seen it translated to Scorched, Fire, things like that. It follows these two twins where their mother suddenly goes catatonic and dies. And she's the secretary for this lawyer who writes up a will for her and set things up for them to find their thought to be dead father and a brother they didn't know existed and in the Middle East. Interspersed with this are flashbacks to the mother's life and how the past and the present interweave to show like continuing cycle of violence, things like that. Really painful and a lot of twists and turns. So this is your last warning. Spoilers.
I want to, before we get into it, I really want to encourage you, if you have any slight interest in this movie, please go watch it.
Yeah.
I recommend any of these movies. It depends on the person, really. If you're not sensitive to stuff like this, you should go watch this. It's a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, if you have any interest in this director's filmography, go check it out. I consider it essential as well. It's an experience. What we're going to touch on is not going to be the full story, and honestly, it's going to be the worst way to experience a story if you get spoiled. I'm just saying. Yeah,
is
for
Like
sure.
it's because they're very disjointed because like this film is very dense, and it's just like our general bullshit ways. But I can't understate like how much this deserves to be watched.
Because there's a twist in it.
There are like 5 twists in this movie.
Yeah, but like the biggest one, because with everything that's happened, the twins are set basically on a journey, and the twist of it all is just so like jaw dropping.
The final revelation.
It's so just it needs to be experienced.
Which do we just want to go ahead and jump into the?
I feel like with this one we can still walk through the.
We need to walk through it because it's definitely a journey, just like the film itself.
but not hitting like beat for beat.
Yeah.
I think like we'll start with the very opening shots of the movie, which is of the little boy getting his head shaved, becoming a soldier in military and it's all set to Radiohead, You and Who's Army, and it's just this really haunting, and there's even like a shot of his ankle that has the 3 dots that were tattooed,
Or his heel.
Heel.
That were tattooed on his heel at when he was born, and I didn't realize that, like, going in, like, how much there's a lot of stuff that gets introduced like in the first half. It was like y'all were kind of saying, I was kind of feeling my way through the dark on it.
Yeah,
because it's because they throw a lot at you at once, and some of the stuff you don't, even by the end of the movie, you don't really have the full context for, and that's done for purpose. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so like when the film starts, it's like you're kind of like you said, in the dark. It's very vague, mysterious, because we're having to unravel this mystery, just like the twins, because we see this boy, we see him looking very angry at us.
It really is uncanny, like, to see like this 8-9-year-old boy just like staring down the barrel of a cannon, and it just like with a palpable emotion. It's really disarming.
It's just seething anger.
Such a very intense jawline too, by the way, which is important.
Yeah.
Because
remember that jaw, everybody.
Because later, again, the 3 little dot tattoos is important because later our 2 twins' mother, we go back in time and we find out that this mother, she's trying to run away with this man. His name is Wahad, and her brothers catch up to her. Wahad gets killed, which is like, I was just like, what the fuck?
And there's a lot of moments in this movie because a lot of it's set during unknown Civil War.
Yeah,
and so there's just a lot of very frank depictions of like murder and death.
And we find out that she's dishonored her family because apparently she's Christian, and the person that she was just with was a refugee who was Muslim, and she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And she has this child, and at birth, this child is given 3 dots on their heel. And so automatically we know, okay, that's the brother that they're looking for. Whoever this person is, that's them. And we don't ever see them again, and the mother herself doesn't really know where he's at. We, take him to an orphanage, and then find out later that orphanage has been destroyed, and the war...
During the warfare, because she made a promise to her grandmother, it's like, we won't disown you if you give up the child. We'll give you a hint as to how he could be tracked down, but you must have to, like, leave and go to school. And when she's, like, in college... like, she still gets wrapped up in like the politics and the warfare, because like during like the conflict between like the Muslim and the Christian states, it's just like a lot of just like bloodshed and warfare. And then when she goes to look for her child after the fact, like she's really walking on foot into like the heart of darkness to find him, and where she finds out he was sent after he was born. The building was destroyed. The orphanage was destroyed during an attack of the Christian armies.
Yeah, and sort of how getting to that, like the structure of the movie is, it'll show one or both the twins going off, making discoveries, meeting certain people, and then it cuts back to the past where it shows a chunk of the mom's life.
Kind of going in the same direction, especially with the shots that they did, kind of like mimicking the journey between the mother and one of her twin daughters.
Because the daughter, Jean, she's more or less the chief protagonist in the present.
Or at least for like the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
Because like her brother is very much like resentful of their mother, and it's like he's not part of this big scavenger hunt, but she wants to find out. So she goes through like hell and creation to like into like the very far remote part of the countryside, and I think for both Jean's story and her mother in the wall, like it's like this quietly harrowing journey until it gets like straight up horrifying. How you just this one tiny person walking through the middle of all this rubble and damage, and just like a big country that's unfamiliar to you. It feels like it feels so small and he feels so vulnerable. That's like one of the most impactful things I felt from the first half of the film.
Or even just seeing like what we were talking about with the juxtaposition between the timelines of the story, like how you see like just the brutal carnage in the past and sort of how like everything in the present's more overgrown, and you sort of see the scars from that conflict.
Oh yeah. In especially in the landscape as well as with the people.
Yeah.
So yeah, but there's also an important scene that basically, like, it's weird. Sorry, I'll my reference I'll come back to later. But anyway, there's an important scene where she hasn't given up, but she can't locate her son. So she takes a bus ride and pretends to be Muslim.
Just removes her necklace and puts on
and the thing is
head covering.
This comes from like a scene that cuts to show like her college, and when the college got overrun, she said she was going. She started looking for her son.
She fled it during when the Christian armies were sort of like Christian militia were sort of like taking more presence.
Yeah, and there is a good chunk of the movie. It'd probably be about 20 minutes or so. A lot of her just like wandering, talking to people, seeing where she can locate, until she gets to the bus that you were talking about, and then she gets on a bus before that, and I'm like, oh fuck, we're at this part of the movie.
And there's a time when Jonathan was talking about it earlier. It might have been another episode or just like privately. He said there's a moment with a bus, and that's all I say. And I was like, oh fuck, is this the bus? Was this the bus they were talking about?
Yeah, and then it didn't happen. I'm like, okay, it's later. And she pretends to be Muslim to get on this bus, and she falls asleep. And when she wakes up, they're surrounded by Christian militias.
Yeah, which you can tell, like, it's not like, they're Christian because of their actions, but like, you really don't know how hardcore they are until later. And
for I guess greater detail, this isn't just like these aren't like white Christians. These are like Middle Eastern like citizens of the country, like who believe Christianity, and sort of the like very tensions filled and like straight up violent conflict between Muslim and Christians, and which leads to like just massacre by the Christian militia where they shoot down the bus, with the sole survivors being the mother and these refugees, who's a mother and a child. And because the mother in the wall was raised Christian, she holds out her necklace of a crucifix to be let out. And she has a moment of like this harrowing moment where she looks at the mother and the child and just like, I'll take your child with me.
Yeah.
And
she pretended that the little girl was her
daughter.
child. So
and
it's
attempt
like
to save the little girl. But then the Christian militia, they shoot the remaining mother and set the bus on fire. But the little girl, she's just distraught, so she runs back to the bus, and the militia members kill the little girl.
And it's very just like frank. I forgot how like brazen that is to show like that level of like violence towards children.
Yeah, and the thing like
because that's usually like a big
which I guess that should be another trigger is like violence towards children, because wow, it's like it's like a shot from far away, and then you just see the child running, and the man.
It's a horizon shot.
Yeah, point blank just shoots her.
Just no emotion, just executed like an animal.
And in our main character's mother, or the mother is
the wall.
Since she's Christian, they just kind of leave her there, and the bus is just scorching.
Yeah, and it leads to probably the most iconic shot of the film of her just like
it's her face
in shock as like in the background the bus is on fire
and there's a dead child on the ground,
and then it smash cuts immediately to her daughter on a train wearing the same necklace her mom used to save herself.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the few effects that her mother had left that the daughter inherited. And, like, just so you just had, like, this fucking gut punch of, like, what her mother went through in that instance. And then the mother makes the decision that she's, after what she witnessed, what she believes happened to her son, she involves herself with this, like, antagonistic group to take revenge. So she gets hired on as a tutor to the leader of the Christian militia, and
the tutor French, because that was something that she went to school for, was to learn French. So the Christian militia's leader, he was like, I want my son to learn different languages, so they hire her on, it's obviously a way to get close, because there's a scene, it's very brief, but where she's talking to the group that she's a part of, and she's like, I think the man is like, but you're Christian too, and she's like, I'm going to teach the enemy, what they taught us, what they taught me. And then also it shows shots of the Christians who attacked the bus. They have literally pictures of the Virgin Mother Mary taped onto their fucking
the sock of their rifles.
Onto their, like, fucking AK-47.
Yeah, and then they have, like, golden cross necklaces, like, that are bejeweled, like, to hell. Like some, like, Vatican shit.
Yeah, it's like shit you would get at, like, fucking, like, Buckle.
Okay.
Like, it looked like Affliction design.
And it's just, like, so haunting, of course, Christianity has this deep and dark history, but, like, this sort of popular connotation, this is a religion of, like, peace and love, or, like, that's what religion is supposed to be, for, like, love and compassion and understanding. And it's used for the most brutal, wanton violence possible.
Well, and the thing is like, the thing that makes that bus scene so impactful is how senseless it all is at the end of the day. Because this is just a bus full of civilians. It's mostly women and children, too. It's like, what sort of fighting are they going to do? They're just trying to escape.
Yeah.
And they get killed in the most ruthless and like, just malevolent sort of cold, like, I am on my team and you're on the opposing team, and bam, you're dead.
If you're not with me, you're against me. That mindset. That even if you're a passive party, in a sense, but you're allied with, my opposition. Therefore, you're just as evil and destructive.
Which
you must be exterminated. Which is like, that's a harrowing concept that people have lived through.
That, and it still exists today, because, like, people watching this might think, like, what Christians would do that? And it's like, look at history.
Look at history.
Look at all of history. There are a lot of Christians who would do that, and they even did it in even more brutal ways.
And it's not limited to Christianity. Just like how any, not to mock anyone with a faith, with a belief,
ideology.
It's just like how any form of belief or, like, can be morphed into something destructive and violent.
Yeah,
because there's even, like, a radical set of Buddhism that was like decapitating people. So
yeah.
Anything can turn into a violence.
And that's sort of the problem with dogmatic thinking, because you start forming, like, these thought-determining cliches that shut down your critical thinking. So at a certain point, it's like, well, I can justify this because I am in the right, because I serve this particular deity, or
this
I believe this certain political ideology that I believe correct and will do absolutely anything to see this achieved. and like Peacemaker is like, I'm going to achieve peace, and I'll do it if I have to kill every man, woman, and child to get it.
That was exactly what I was going to fucking say, John. Get out of my head. No, it's, like, crazy. And, too, and then especially, like, with, like, America and how it's treated, and in the war in the Middle East and how it's treated Muslims and its Muslim citizens.
Yeah.
And it's, like, it's very, like, you get that from this. And I, like, because it's like the picture that people have used 9/11 and, they've certain attacks they've used to paint any sort of person from the Middle East or a Muslim. It's awful, it's terrible, and it's like, because like, it's not like it's just mind-boggling, these fuckers who just kill because like my God is different. Your God's different from my God, so I think you need to die. Or there was a magic baby born in the desert, so I gotta kill you. Also, can somebody cut the skin off my penis?
Just believe what you want to believe and don't try to kill someone just because.
It's like let people live their fucking lives. It's all right.
No, because you know what? I gotta make sure you don't go to hell, so I'm gonna brutally murder you.
You're not helping anything.
Which, like, it's one of those things you think about for any length of time. It's like, wow, this is fucking stupid. But you know, people who do have that zeal, like it is.
I mean, in the end,
hard to temper that.
Those kinds of people aren't really religious. They are insane psychopaths.
It's not even necessarily the religion's fault. A lot of the time, it's they're using their religion to justify certain things.
I mean, that's
granted, like religion does. Even most religions have very pernicious aspects to them, in like essentially, but
that's also because of like. That's like, time and different, figures of power getting their hands on it and altering it to fit their means.
Exactly.
So it's like, who knows what is meant to be, what it's meant to be. It's all fucked up.
Well, and it's not even just like the Christians in this movie. Like they paint the Muslims in a fairly similar light. Like, granted, not to the extent of the Christians, but it definitely goes out of its way to muddy the waters with what's like going on. Because it's like, not everybody is like
no
one's like necessarily correct in this situation.
Yeah, no one comes out clean. And it's just being honest that like, regardless of what religious side of the stand they were on, like there was unspeakable crimes done in the name of it. Whether or not they're not,
even if what they're fighting for is justified, there is a certain line
that
you ethically, morally shouldn't cross.
And we see the mother sort of like traverse like these lines herself as she sort of gets deeper and deeper out of the love for her child, or like to get recompense for that, where she assassinates the leader of the Christian militia, and she's thrown into jail for 15 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she's brutally tortured.
Well, and also, like, the major theme of this movie is sort of the cycle of violence, and how, like, one of the main reasons why that scene with the bus is so pivotal is, up to that point, she's just trying to search for her lost son. It's after that where she's like, I want the enemy to feel the pain that I felt during this moment, which was something that was absolutely horrific and traumatic. And then she assassinates this president, which I'm not saying is, probably a good thing, because this guy sounded like a fucking asshole.
I mean, he was.
But was that? But like that choice, like.
But that choice leads her to go to be put into prison, and I'm trying to walk this because I don't want to sound victim blamey. Like this, what happens to her is her fault, because it's not. But it's how these events cascade to one another to lead to just more violence, and how by the end of it she wants to cut it off where it is currently.
Yeah, and because when she's stuck in jail for 15 years, as her daughter is still like piecing it together. Like we said, we kind of jump back and forth between the present and the past, and she finds out her mother was in jail, and she finds the guard. You find this other revelation that she got pregnant via rape in jail, and you start thinking like, oh fuck, is there like a fourth child out there, or a fourth sibling that in this family? Because she has the child we knew as, but we find out that from like who they think is their father. She's like, okay, this is the boy with the 3 dots on their heel. This is the one they're looking for. And then she came pregnant via her abuser, a torture specialist named Tabo Arek. And in this moment, you're getting another like clue as to this bigger narrative.
This is sort of like one of the first like big twists of the movie.
Because
you think there's a fourth child,
or not even just. It was like you're trying to make sense of everything, and people are conflicting themselves and conflicting each other. Because
Jean, she thinks that the child born in this prison is her brother, the one they're looking for. But we know as the audience that's not true
Yeah,
because her
you know,
brother was
dramatic
born
irony.
way back.
Way before
and the person they think that their father is Wahad, and they were told that their father was killed during
War.
the war, which he kind of was, because we find out very
Well,
early.
it's before the.
It's before the war, but Wahad is killed. Now he does have a child. It's the first child, but that's it. There's no possible way that he could have ever conceived twins.
So these twins are a product of rape.
Because
they were born in this prison.
And we know that's a confirmed fact because she gives birth, and then the nurse that helps deliver says, "All right, we got the first one. Here comes the second." And then they're there, and then the nurse, because usually what they do, because Abu Tarak, or maybe whoever torture specialist guards have gotten women pregnant, so when the child is born, they just throw them in the river.
Yeah.
But in this scenario, the nurse or the midwife takes them and says, "I'll take them," because they come from the woman who sings, which was something that her mother was known for, being in the prison, that no matter how much she was brutally tortured, she just kept singing. And
she just had this iron resolve that no one could break her spirit.
And
despite
the
brutality.
point of the rape was to stop the singing.
But it
did.
didn't,
And there wasn't one; it was multiple times. We were told.
and it was over the course of
This is
years.
toward the end of her captivity, if I remember right.
It is, but it was still
Probably years.
I mean, granted, one time is too many. But
No, because as soon as she has the twins, they say we'll let you go, because they for some reason a part of this deal, quote unquote, was that she had to have twins in prison, and then once she had the babies, they would let her go, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and then she was ostensibly forced to move to Canada.
Yeah, because she later made contact with the leader of
the organization she allied herself
with, and they were like, what you did for us was incredible. Thank you. You're basically family for us. Your family is our family. We'll take care of you and your children. And however, you gotta relocate. And we found your twins. You gotta take them with you. You gotta live a life away. So she moves to Canada and basically lives the rest out her life in Canada. And I don't know how I should approach this about the torture Abu Tarak, but
well, because the twins sort of they reunite,
and you'll probably be thinking it's they're not really talking about the present plot that much, and it's mostly because the present plot is the siblings trying to figure out
the past.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out what is essentially the main plot of this movie, which is what their mother's past.
Yeah,
and they start meeting with all these other people.
Yeah,
and by this point in the movie, the brother finally gets roped into it after much protest, because the brother is very much oh, I don't want to.
Yeah, they're notary.
This seems ridiculous. I just want to bury my mother. Get rid of
But the notary wants to respect and honor her will.
He's very determined to make sure the will is followed to the letter.
Because Simone is he's just why do you care? And it's because I mean, really, the notary was we loved your mom, we loved you guys.
Because she was a secretary to this lawyer.
Yeah,
for almost 20 years,
and they very much cared for them, and they want to make sure everything's taken care of after. And so Simone is pulled in. They go to this wherever it is. They pull in another
local
notary, and to kind of help unravel this. And
it's at this point that the focus starts to shift back into present to find the missing brother, because they find out where he was. They find a name. His name is Nahad of May, because he was an orphan, so they just kind of gave him a distinction to separate himself from the other boys. And through a lot of rigmarole, they're able to find out where he was
from this one former warlord or current warlord. We don't really know.
Yeah, because what happens is Nahad is again at that orphanage. The orphanage gets destroyed, and the children get captured, and Nahad is recruited in. Now, Nahad at the time is at a Christian orphanage, gets recruited into basically
the
Muslim side. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, but then he gets captured again and gets converted back to the Christian side.
Or at least the impression I got is not necessarily converted. it's just like by the time he gets captured by the Christians again, he kind of has this like just nihilistic blood rage.
Yeah.
Like,
And he's just like, as long as I'm like fucking causing as much mayhem.
Yeah, he's hungry for war.
Because like he was captured, he was taken in by the warring paramilitary group, made into a soldier, made into a weapon. He's this proficient sniper. Then when he's recaptured again, it's just like, you know what? If you want to make destruction so bad because you kind of lost your way, you couldn't find your own mother on your own, you just want to like cause havoc, you can be our weapon now too, because that's what he just made into like this blunt instrument.
And he changes his name to Abu Tariq,
which is the man who tortured and
Raped.
raped the woman who he didn't realize was his own mother. And by that means their brother fathered them.
So they have a brother-father, and this poor woman gave birth to her son's kids. It's real. It's like levels of fucked up.
Like this woman was molested by her son and gave birth to her children through him. And the scene where the brother is sort of used to suss out the former warlord, I thought was a really great scene where he's blindfolded and you see, and who you led to believe is the leader, he's kept out of focus away from the brother, and you just hear someone speaking, and then once they sort of gauge the situation, his blindfold's taken off and he speaks to who is actually the warlord, who's speaking the whole time. It's just like we get misdirection on the audience part.
Yeah, I love that because it's like when he reveals who he is, what he's looking for, what's going on, the warlord is like whispers like, "Hey, get everybody out." Everybody leaves, and it's just them. It's very intimate, personal, because of the revelation that was about to come, and it's that, and it's just So whenever I said the jawline, Abu Tariq, when we first see him, the same jawline as the kid, and it wasn't until like moments after I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, like, I'm not even thinking hard, it literally just hits me, and I'm like, man, I was like, that Abu Tariq has a really strong jaw. And then I look at John, I'm like, I literally cover my mouth, I'm like, no. I was like, no way.
And because like around the same point in the movie you figured it out was when I figured it out, and even I was like, they wouldn't do that, would they? I'm just crazy. No, they went there.
I was like, I was so shocked, and at that moment I'm like, this is 100% gonna happen. This is 100% true because it's right there, and it ended up being true, and it was just so fucking devastating. Like, oh my god, because there's another moment, because now Abu Tariq and Nawal's her name?
Yeah, the
mother.
The mother.
They didn't know. They were strangers. But then later, when she's older, she's had her kids are adults, she's in a pool with
because like after we get the big bombshell that Abu Tariq was their brother
and also their father,
it cuts back to a more recent flashback of that shows why their mother became so catatonic. Why
she just went silent completely, and she's at a pool, she's swimming, she gets to the edge or whatever, and she's kind of sitting there. There's some guys talking. She looks at the guy's heel, has the same tattoos.
The 3 dots.
The 3 dots.
Right heel.
Then she looks, gets out of the pool, looks at him. It's him. And that's when she realizes, holy shit, this is my son and this is my rapist.
Yeah, and her mind just kind of breaks. And
it's absolutely shattered. It's insane. And that's also something else we learned too, is that Abu Tariq doesn't have a death certificate. That means he's still alive. And
or he was never confirmed to be dead.
Yeah.
So basically, he fled the country and assumed a new identity in Canada, and the sort of culmination of now the twins in present day know the full story, and they managed to track him down, in Canada, and they hand them a package that has the letter that they were told by their mother's will to give to their father and to their brother. And of course, them being one and the same, they give them to Nahad.
He's got both fucking letters.
And to the moment when Nahad read, because he just lived like a janitor, like a bus cleaner, just an ordinary job, despite the fucking life as a soldier,
atrocities,
war crimes he did, living like just a normal life. When he gets back to his apartment and reads the letters, it's probably the biggest emotional blow, because he reads the letter to the father first, which is him reading his mother's letter addressing him as her rapist.
Yep.
Which is, just like fuck you, you hurt me, and just blah blah blah.
Your children will deliver this letter, and then when he realizes that, he runs outside. They're already gone.
And then when he reads the second letter, which is Nawal addressing him as her son, that despite the brutality that he visited upon, that she forgave him, that she still loves him.
She still loves him, and she loves their children. And it's like, it's so complex, because how?
It kind of seems like two antithetical ideas. It seems kind of cognitively dissonant, but with things like this fucking disturbing and complicated, like,
you can't really know unless you
can't
were the
like
one.
rationally, justify
unless you've been in this situation. You can't,
And I feel like in the hands of a less experienced director, this could come off unnecessarily like edgy or graphic for the sake of being graphic.
Yeah.
But like it's handled with such grace for something as dark and as fucked up as this is. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to this is originally based off a play by the same name, and kind of based off the lives of this Lebanese like communist freedom fighters sort of thing.
Loosely,
very loosely, like kind of just the framework. And the whole main conflict of the movie, like the war that's talked about, is never really elaborated on. There's like hints that it may be Lebanon, Palestine. There's like a lot. It's kind of like mixed together, and it's because the playwright, I think he had family that were in the Lebanese Civil War in like the 70s to the 90s, and he didn't feel like he didn't feel comfortable sort of appropriating that story.
Yeah,
because he wasn't the one who went through it. But I have seen like certain like criticisms of the movie of how it being not specific kind of robs it of some authenticity or something like that.
It's just like this very vaguely defined like Middle Eastern dispute.
Yeah,
but you can say like certain like countries and like the specificity of like who these groups are would kind of give it more potency. It's like, okay, this is. But at the same time, like just considering like all the sort of the history of violence and continued violence in the Middle East, I feel like kind of like not pointing like a direct finger like a certain warring group or faction outside of just like generally Muslim and Christian. Like I feel like that's a safe way to do it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like
it's just a very subjective thing.
Yeah, because most of the criticism was coming from people who survived it, who was like, this feels like parts of my story, but it also feels like you're kind of coming in and taking what you want from it.
Yeah,
it's a really complicated thing that I'm a white person and probably shouldn't be talking about my opinions on. But and on top of all this, I think one of the big influences obviously is Oedipus.
Oh yeah,
because the playwright specifically set out to write something with like the level of Greek tragedy. And while like even reading like, because like things like these ancient stories have been done and overdone to death, you kind of lose the impact of what those stories provide. But with this, I think you really get the full emotional impact. And for me personally, like I felt more of it the second time through than the first time, because the first time I was just kind of reeling from the shock of the whole thing, because it is just a lot. But when you have the full context of the story and watching through it again and seeing how all the pieces are meticulously placed to lead up to that conclusion, it makes a lot of the earlier scenes a lot harder
Yeah.
to sit through.
Um,
And there were multiple moments when I was tearing up during this movie.
like speaking of like a callback, we find out that Jean, she's in school. She's like an assistant. She's a mathematician, and when the brother finds out about their father and their brother, he tells her like in the one language that she can understand, which is or one of the one of the languages that she knows the best, which is math. He says, and he's like, can 1 + 1 = 1? And in that moment, she like kind of lets out a shriek and covers her mouth, and she knows. And I thought that scene was just as shocking.
Without having to like straight up explain what happened, just like having this coded way of detailing this like horrifying revelation and way of calling back to that original portion of the film where she is like this assistant professor with like theoretical mathematics where like just regular thought and it doesn't apply here, and it's just how just emotionally devastating that is. And that to me was that scene and the scene where Nahai was reading the dual letters. That's the part that like I was really almost really trying not to cry, just like blubber.
Because especially when he was reading the second letter, and just that final shot of him staring at the grave, and then the music starts, and it's this really haunting piece. It's just
because it's like the will, it makes them go on a journey, and it has really specific instructions. And one of the things was that if everything is completed, then you can she for her gravestone, you can put her name on it with an epitaph. And it's like, so they completed it. It was put there so that Nahad Abu Tarek knows exactly where she is, and it's just
not a single good thing happened. Nothing but pain.
It's one of those things when you just like, wow, that's fucked up. Like the bus scene, it gets much worse.
But also it was just so like it was. Finally reading the letter that was left for the twins was just also really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the things I enjoy about this movie, especially like on a second time watch, despite, setting aside like the more like troubling aspects of the movie, like a lot of the triggering stuff, I feel like this movie is written in such a way that it's a good like beginner movie to understand media literacy with, in the sense of like looking into like symbolic meanings. So a lot of the stuff is very blunt, especially like for me on the second time through, it's like, oh, this is how the mechanics of this movie work.
And one thing I really appreciate is that people who are able to tell a story with minimal dialogue. It's just like implied meaning just through the use of like visual cues and how a lot of the film is just quiet, and you're just sort of left with your own thoughts, you're racing and confused as you are, and just seeing this woman who's quiet to herself and has her own thought. You're just like, what the hell is she thinking? What is she going through? As like both the mother and the daughter go on these sort of parallel journeys. And one bit even I just thought was like interesting outside of that was when the brother is being led to demand it would be the warlord to figure out the plot. How two men are sent for him, and the brother walks through a metal detector, and then the two men go through it, and the metal detector goes off, and there's no dialogue, but you realize that these men, if you didn't know before, these men are dangerous.
Yeah, it's just like the way things are communicated. It's very blunt and in your face, but it doesn't come across as like try hard or clumsily handled.
Nothing in this movie, at least to me, and I would say for the rest of us, feels like it's gratuitous or exploitative. It's just very direct.
Or even like pretentious or like up its own ass. Even things like something as simple as like the whole like weaving of the abstract mathematics throughout the whole story. How like there's a speech early on in the movie talking about how like, oh, the mathematics you've dealt with up to this point are like clear, definite, concise, definite conclusions. we're starting to get to messy gray areas
Where there aren't conclusions.
There aren't conclusions, and you kind of just have to sit with these unresolved feelings, despite like there being a lot of closure in the sense of like we know exactly what happened.
It's like we get like we get this sort of full circle story, but you're sort of left with a lot of gray feelings and emotions. Like with Nahad Abu Tarek, like he's a very deplorable person in what he's done, but you realize with his past, like he was a child of war, and like
and we don't want to excuse anything that he does.
Oh no, he shouldn't have been.
But I mean, yeah, you can go through all that trauma and not be a piece of shit.
It's it's like you don't know how the dominoes will fall. You don't know how these like repercussions will happen as like you drop a rock in the water and the ripples wash out. You don't know what those outcomes will be, and this and as like extreme as his story is and as her story is, or all of their stories are, is like it's just this weird, like sad story, and no one comes out really happy, but like their stories are told and they're not really sort of giving the impression, oh, this is like a right or wrong way. These are just things that exist.
Like I feel like the whole movie is just building up to the point where they can all just start to heal from everything. It's not even sort of getting past the healing process, it's getting to the healing process.
And Villeneuve is the use of color, and you see that in the films I've seen by him, you kind of get that. But with this, especially like Sicario as well, and I guess Arrival, it's more muted. But like something I thought was interesting was that every time you go into past, you get sunlight, bright, kind of orange, yellow, and then when you get to the future, when you get with the twins and stuff, it's just gray. It's all gray.
Yeah, it'll be like shots of snow, or it'll be dark outside, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's also a good like visual indicator of where you're at in the story.
Oh yeah,
because they don't really give you a lot of clues. The movie respects you enough to be like, okay, you'll be able to figure this out.
There definitely were a few times where they jumped the timelines, but okay, where are we right now? And then like, okay,
yeah,
yeah, especially that first time it flashes back to the past. It was like, okay, who are these people? It's like, oh.
And I will say too, with the brother and what in his part of the journey, you can like the color palette change to be kind of like the color palette of the past, which is kind of like, in my opinion, kind of like, again, like just like the mother and how Jean going to trying to figure this all out. It's like the past is coming in now with Simone, as well as part of his mother's story.
Yeah, more of that. Once more of that story is revealed, it's starting to affect more of the present.
Yeah.
As emotionally devastating as this film was, I went on a whole journey with it in my head and just like with my feelings. And while it would be a very cautious recommendation, I think this is very much worth seeking out. Obviously, give yourself the space to view this, because it's not an easy watch. Yeah. But it's very much worth the experience, however difficult it is, because like there's a time and a place where difficult stories need to be told, and I think this is one that has a lot of impact in several different ways. And like if you have the emotional bandwidth to go on that story, I would recommend it. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I could be argued to take it up to 5. It's just that good.
And when I first saw it, I gave it a 4.5. Going through this movie once again, I bump it up to a full 5. I think any sort of issues I had before, it was mostly because I didn't understand what was going on. But yeah, it's meticulously constructed and on every single level of filmmaking, and highly recommend.
5 from me. Absolutely amazing movie. Man hasn't made a bad movie yet, in my opinion, that I've seen.
Especially not the ones I've seen.
Yeah, 5 stars, obviously. Fantastic. One of my favorites up there with Blade Runner. Fuck you, Tanner. He didn't like Sicario. Sicario is a fucking masterpiece as well.
Which movie I haven't seen, hope to get to one day.
Yeah, well, we got it on Blu-ray at the house, so we'll probably check that out in the near future.
First Time, Long Time Part 2.
Maybe.
I think this will be the end of part 2. We're going to take a little break, and you'll probably need one too. And come back in part 3, we'll discuss the final film of our movie festival. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part 3 of First Time, Long Time Movie Festival. And the last movie we'll be discussing is the movie I brought to the table, which is 1994's Pom Poko, or as it's known in Japan, Heisei Tanuki Gessen Pom Poko, which translates to Heisei Tanuki War Pom Poko. This is Studio Ghibli's 8th film. It was directed by Isao Takahata, and this film is about community of tanuki or raccoon dogs, a type of canid species native to Japan that looks like, very accurately, a cross between a raccoon and a dog.
With big ass balls.
Big old balls, as that's a very important plot point. And it's it's an exploration of lots of their habitat due to construction and human sort of overpopulation, and how they react to it, from benign to more aggressive tactics. And basically the conceit is sort of man versus nature, and that which is a very reoccurring plot point in Miyazaki films and across Studio Ghibli's body of work. And I first saw this movie, God, it's probably been about 18 years now. It was 2003. I was happening up randomly at 3 a.m. one night. I had it turned on TV just to watch, and I saw this anime movie in AMC. It's what is this? And I watched it. It just transfixed, because just one, how gorgeous the film is, and two, just how butt fucking wild it is. Just while Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki are very well known, this movie doesn't get a lot of fanfare. It's not really talked about a lot in Miyazaki or anime film discussions, and I wanted to revisit the movie for myself and just sort of give everyone else the experience of seeing this movie. So, and I loved it the first time, but I'm definitely curious to see what were y'all's impressions, and have you heard of this movie in the Ghibli's library?
I heard of this movie a few years ago on Twitter because somebody shared the scene of the Tanukis with their nutsack. They use it as a parachute before they slam into the ground by making their balls huge to fight the police.
It sounds fucking crazy, but
It sounds like we're making this movie up,
but no,
we're not.
the ball sacks are an important part not only of the movie but also of the Tanuki's history in general,
and their general anatomy, because they are known for having very
huge
large
testicles,
disproportionately large testicles, and how Tanuki is just this very rich symbol in Japan. How it's just hundreds of years of folklore. It's a very well known symbol and part of Japanese iconography. And if you watch any sort of anime, any sort of Japanese sort of media, you've seen the statue or the visage of a Tanuki in some fashion, because with this movie, the Takahata spent a lot of time incorporating just about every Tanuki raccoon based folklore imagery into the film. And what I think is sort of a little tiny tragedy about the film is that there's a lot that's just going to go completely over the heads of any Western viewer, unless you're just really dialed into Japanese culture. Miyazaki himself said that there's a lot about the film in terms of its folklore and cultural artifacts that went over the head of Japanese viewers at the time, because a lot of the film is sort of how the past gets pushed to the side for the sake of progress and modernity, with not being preserved. And so there's a lot of the film that may be a bit alien even to native viewers. And I think that's one of the bigger, dramas of the film.
Yeah.
John and Wenzel, what were y'all's impressions?
All righty, I'll go. This was a Ghibli movie that's been on the top of my radar. I remember seeing the little Tanukis being cute and shit, and And how this one, like Pat was saying, doesn't really get talked about a lot. And I think a lot of it has to do with the a lot of the cultural elements of the movie that might go over the heads of, like you were saying, even native viewers. But it's also fucking weird. I was not ready. I thought this was going to be a cute movie. Like, I thought this was going to be Totoro, but with raccoons. I was fucking wrong. It is flying nutsacks and one raccoon that has weirdly detailed nipples for some reason.
It's the only raccoon with nipples.
It's
Why?
the only raccoon with
That
fucking nipples.
really fucked up John and Colt.
It doesn't make sense. Like, every other character didn't have nipples at all. It was the only one with nipples.
And they were huge and weirdly detailed.
They were pink.
I'm
why?
just like, why?
I mean,
why?
You can count the bumps on the areola.
And also, mammals, a lot of them have pink nipples.
I mean,
That's
yeah.
not really the big issue here.
It's not necessarily that the raccoons have nipples. It's just this one specific one does.
And we see, and it's wearing clothes too. It's like one of the few Tanuki that is wearing clothes, but that have the nipples pop out every now and then. I don't get it. You have like all these other raccoons with these larger, well, these are pretty big boobies on this one with the nipples. There's other ones with boobies and they don't got nipples. Why has this one got nipples?
I mean, but the female
But
one.
this one, but every single one of them has just like an expanding pair of nuts.
Yeah, which is funny because the males that have the nuts, it's like the nuts are very obvious, but also the females, to make them seem that they're female, they usually give them like a shirt and then they'll have huge boobs, but even then some don't have a shirt and they still have huge boobs, and it's just that one that has the nipples. But Pat, do you get any of this? Do you understand this? What's going on over here?
I just love sort of just seeing the clamor like behind me because the Tanukis have like an inherent ability to transform as a part of like Japanese folklore. But certain ones are, of course, more adept than others. So they have like different abilities to transform and like to different degrees. But there's this one like elder Tanuki that's like, okay, I have a special trick for the male Tanuki. All the boys come around, and he's like, going over like the high-handedness of it. And it's also, by the way, this mat you've been sitting on is actually my balls.
No, he says like this mat you're sitting on is special. Do you know why it's special? It's my nutsack.
And it took me a good like 10 seconds for that to like I got the fucking spinning wheel, and it was like that was his nuts.
And then they just
that they were standing on.
Then they just shrivels up, like retracts back into his body. He's just cackling.
And and John's screaming, and Pat's cackling, and I'm just like,
but because like Pat's talked about this movie before, like when we would talk about Ghibli, and it's like, oh yeah, Pom Poko, that's one, and Pat's, yeah, I like that one. Never really goes into the fact that they fight with their fucking nuts.
It's like, obviously I couldn't. Y'all had to just experience it. I didn't want to rob
and
y'all.
I appreciate you because I will say, while this is definitely not my favorite, not even my favorite of the Takahata Ghibli movies, I still really fucking enjoyed this.
And
to make a very long story short.
And I will say I did kind of forget how long the movie was. It's 2 hours, but I would say the plot is very languid. There's not a hurry to get to any point.
Yeah, there's I think it, like the biggest complaint I have about the movie, especially that last half, felt really long. I was like, there were multiple times I'm like, oh, we're gearing up for the end. Oh, we're still going. And some of the events kind of felt repetitive too, but we'll get into that. What did you think about it, Wenzel?
Big nuts,
big balls,
big balls,
big balls,
just big balls. Speaking of Tanukis and things, when me and Cole were playing Neo 2, every time we'd open a chest, instead of it being like kind of like it was a mimic, but like it was a Tanuki. And I remember being so confused about what it was because it would be holding something on top of its head. I'm like, what the fuck is that? It was holding its nutsack. It was so fucking big, and I'm just like
look at this.
And
this is highly detailed.
And what was cool about it was because it's a mimic, and because Tanukis can transform, it would always, whoever was the person, like it's kind of random, but it will transform into the player character.
Yeah.
And it's like really crazy. And honestly, that was something I didn't realize about them, even though they did that in Neo 2. Like, that was a part of their folklore, is that they can transform. And we see that into full effect in what was like an awesome spectacle, because I knew very little Pom Poko. When I saw it, when I was telling my dad what I was gonna watch, I was like, we're watching some movie about some Tanuki family. I don't know. That's what I said. Yeah. So, and then seeing it now, and I didn't realize there was a scene in there of the giant skeleton. That's also in Japanese folklore.
The Gasha Dokuro.
It's
Yes.
pretty much every single thing in Japanese folklore.
It was a part of a parade, but that specific shot, I didn't realize. I've seen all over Twitter for like certain like cinema accounts or people sharing like random, good anime moments or whatever. And I was like, wow, okay, that's crazy. Yeah, I love it. I literally enjoyed it. I did not know how important the ball sack was.
I was not ready for how important the testicles were going to be.
Was not ready.
And it's so funny because there's an opening shot because like there's like a dispute between the Tanuki clans like in this one particular territory, as like human encroachment sort of kick starts the plot. How like they're getting ready for like this will be our final battle, and you see like the Tanukis like very realistically drawn charge into battle, and then they shift into like these very cartoonish like raccoons, and you think like they're gonna like whoop ass, and they're just like bonking each other on the head with sticks.
Yeah.
And like they'll like partially transform to like samurais. Like, it's funny how they play up a lot of seriousness of the film and like the loss of wilderness and the habitat, with like how the Tanukis like actively struggle against their nature for being like very lackadaisical, easily distracted, like very jovial creatures. How like there will be so many times where they just get like, oh, we did one thing minor, huge ass party, and like they have to be the few leaders have to like constantly be on the ball to keep them reined in, because they just want to just wander and just goof around.
It's funny too, because it's like they have these real issues, but like it just reminds me of how like kind of like how humans, how we just view cute animals. Cause like to us, we'll see them do like like growling or like being angry or whatever. But to us, it's like, oh, look at these cute little animals. But to them, they're like, I'm going to start a fucking war. That's what's going on in these animals' heads. But to us, it's like, oh, look at the little babies. Because, like, it was just so funny. It kind of reminds me of the South Park episode with Lemmy Winks versus Weekly Leaks. And it's like, you see this epic battle that's supposed to happen, and it's just these two rats just
like slapping against each other.
like it's just like that. And I saw this. I thought the same thing with these really well drawn Tanuki dog, or these raccoon dogs. Is like they're like like all this, but sorry, this isn't making any sense.
One of the things I really appreciate about the film in terms of like the character design is like how just like fat and fluffy all the characters are. Like everybody is just like a big blob.
A big
belly,
yeah,
and like even like
they're all chunky,
like
chunky
everybody's
babies.
chunky AF, like chunker, and how even normal raccoon dogs are just like big, fat, and fluffy.
They're already chunky.
And then when you have like they all have big pop bellies and like little boobs, and they're all just like just love to eat. Like even the guy who's like very like aggressive and like wants to kill all humans, like his big screed against humanity is completely derailed when they start talking about food.
Tempura. It was literally like, it's like, well, can we keep a few humans for tempura? He's like, all right, it can't be helped. Like
as he just like waterfalls of drool. And I feel like the big part of the movie, even the plot is a little like very slow and sort of like maybe drags out certain aspects of itself. I feel like I don't mind as much because I feel like this is, to me, it felt very much like a warm blanket. Like it's just like vibes.
Yeah.
It's such like a nice, like comfortable, like
this is
Sunday afternoon movie.
This is a Sunday afternoon movie if there ever was one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
like I could see struggling between watching this and Law and Order SVU.
Oh my god.
Struggling? Nah,
I would pick Pom Poko
every
every day. Testicles.
And because so much of this movie's plot and it's based around sort of the preservation of wilderness and being conscious of what we as humans need and like what we can like take from nature in order to survive, the level of detail and effort put into like showing the beauty of nature can't be understated, because there's just so many moments like when it shifts through the whole season, spring, summer, fall, winter, you feel the vibe of like that. There's moments like it's like, oh, this feels like a summer movie. No, this feels like a fall movie.
Yeah.
Like when it just traverses the year, and I feel like I miss like being at my parents' house, because like we're pretty far out in the woods, and just to see like nature, like all the trees and the grass, and like makes me want to go outside and like, because that's very much the point of the film, is like to appreciate the beauty and like the fragility in nature, because once it's displaced, it can't come back.
Yeah, because there was that really good shot of like of the mountain, and it was being redone for development, but like it was kind of I'm trying to think of, there's a term for it, but it basically showed a machine like scooping out the side of the mountain to show that, like, you know, development being done there, and then it scoops the other side, and then development, and it was a really good, I think that was a really good scene, good representation of that, especially also too, it shows a leaf, and then it shows all the little machines kind of eating it like a caterpillar,
Yeah.
you know, eating away at it.
Another cool thing about the movie is like it also shows how strong nature can be. It shows how strong, like specifically raccoons are, and how they have such a will to live that they steal from all these places to live and get their food.
They're survivors, yeah.
And at the end of the movie, they're just living on a golf course, having a party.
Yeah. There's really cool, like, I guess this can also be like the magical side of nature or what have you, but like there was also that really cool scene again with the giant skeleton. What basically was going on was like a parade that they, with the collected power of like these really powerful Tanuki elders and this Tanuki like clan, they were able to pull off this like visual spectacle of them just being different kinds of yokai, different monsters.
About every single like Japanese folklore like image, cryptid creature, like spirit was represented in this massive parade.
It kind of had the same feeling like a lot of the older Disney movies have, where they have just like one scene that is just abstract craziness of just like random stuff. I mean, you know, granted, this is very deliberate in the sense of its cultural creatures and myths and images, but
Yeah.
it was still kind of had that same feeling like the Night on Bald Mountain segment of Fantasia,
and seeing like how seamlessly the Tanukis like over the course of the film like transform from their initial forms to like whatever form they take, like be it animal, vegetable, mineral, and like see just like the fluidity of how they transform like one spirit to another during the big like quote goblin parade. It's like it's just a visual feast, and just like it just shows how the folks at Studio Ghibli are like the best in the history of animation, and like what they're able to accomplish, because they really pulled out all the stops for a movie that's not really well remembered.
Underrated, yeah, I would agree. Like, I mean, really, the transformations, like especially like when they're first starting out, they was really cool.
And like the exploration of their powers, like when you see them like, oh, in order to turn to a big
spider,
thing, you'll have to like combine together, or like there's literally points where you see like the electrical current running through their bodies in order to generate like a bigger illusion.
Energy for their facade. Also, them like, sorry, they increased the size of their ball sacks to like
comic proportions.
Like, oh my god!
Like, especially during like that one Tanuki's like raids against the humans, but they're literally fighting like SWAT officers where they turn their ball sacks into like little parachutes to drop down. Then they get part way through their paradrop. They turn they enlarge their balls to be like battering rams to hit the ground. They're literally like beating people and like smothering them with their balls. And there's like the leader who's literally like swinging his nut sacks like a flail to fight off the fucking cops.
It's fucking so insane.
It's so insane because the cops then are like, it's like instead of hitting the Tanuki directly, they're like hitting the ball sack. It's so, and because like it's gonna hurt, and it does hurt obviously, but it's just so fucking insane. It was so good and so sad because they beat them basically to death, but they actually come back later for one final stunt, which is they become a giant like head,
like a demon head,
which was really cool.
Because like that's sort of the interesting point about the film, is that there is like a happy like I guess like a resolution, but like it's the film overall is bittersweet because when they in their event to sort of to scare humans into like recognizing the power of nature and to preserving the wilderness. This whole parade is sort of like co-opted by like just the Disney like Wonderland kind of place, and the one of the elders dies during just the strain of it all.
God, was that the one who looked like Hayachi from Tekken?
Yes. He's the one that died in the parade.
Just for see how
He wasn't like the oldest, but like
he was the leader.
He was
the oldest one. Is like he was 999 years old.
Yeah, 900. Yeah.
And it's just you see how defeated they are.
Oh yeah, totally.
By the effort and how they're just all their work was for naught. And basically, there's this sad realization that some of the Tanukis come to is that their world is never coming back, and they just have to acquiesce to human nature. So they take on human disguises, live human lives, while like sneaking away to have like some Tanuki time, or some just go straight back to nature and just sort of live in the like the margins. And there's one very like kind of sad scene where one of the remaining Tanuki elders fashions himself a magical boat out of his testicles and takes on a whole horde of transforming raccoons, where they sort of just ride this, have one last party on this boat as they sink into the sea, and they choose death. And like you think like, oh, I forgot about that part.
Man.
Yeah, because there is a very bittersweet, like especially by the end, because they are losing their way of life, their land, their culture.
But then also
but then they have their own little sections where they can still have that piece of it left, so it doesn't truly die.
Yeah, because they said like, well, one of the good things about humans is that they build parks still. Some of them, like you said, transform into humans and basically assimilated into human society as well. And it's kind of just like, yeah,
and it's treated like it's not great, like it's a bad thing. But there's also like
they're able.
There's also this reality they have to face. But they are still able to find enjoyment through that.
Yeah.
Well, the thing like that is like obviously humans have their needs and we can't circumvent that. But it's just how we're able to meet the needs with the resources we have is the big issue. Like the point to make across, like we can still find ways to satisfy what humanity needs, like emphasis on needs, and still respect the beauty of the world that we have left, because we only have one world, and once it's used up, it can't be remade. And like just finding that balance and respect is like the chief point to the point where at the very end of the movie, one of the Tanuki just sort of reiterates the plot. Like,
yeah, he looks directly into the camera and says, "Hey, I know it says we're disappearing, but we're not. We're still here. So you need to change that." As he's holding a
don't forget
shopping
about
bag.
nature. We're still here. Not every species can adapt like that. So please take care of that. Take that in consideration.
Because that's the thing is that animals. We say animals go extinct or they disappear. It's like, well, they don't magically are gone. Like that's not how it works. Like they're still very much there. They're still physically there. Like you gotta take care of that. You gotta be mindful. Yeah.
So. This is like one of my.
Also, one of the Tanukis killed 10 humans.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Tanuki,
like it's surprisingly violent. Like, and not like cartoon Tom and Jerry violent. I mean, like
causing.
Fuck.
There's that, but there's also like real like actual death.
Causing car accidents. Fuck.
Like multiple car accidents. Like because the aggressive contingency of the Tanukis. They're like, yeah, fuck the humans, kill them, and then. There's a great bit where there's like, oh, we need to, we didn't mean to kill them. This an unavoidable sacrifice. We should respect the people that died while they're trying to have like this little funerary moment. And then the rest of them are just like, they're able to stifle their laughter for like a second before they're like, fuck this, have a party.
Let's have a party. It's like, Jesus Christ, all right.
But this is one of my favorite Ghibli films. It's an underrated like classic. I think it's worth seeking out. It's not just ball sack. I love how you get just out there crazy comedy with like some really poignant things to say about human consumption and our relationship with nature.
Yeah.
So I give it 4 stars. It's a great film. So what were y'all sort of like final ratings for the film?
4 stars. Absolutely love it. It's one of the few Ghibli movies I'm missing from my Ghibli bingo. I think I have like 2 or 3 left, and then I'll have them all watched. Almost there, baby. Watch this movie. Watch the movie about the fucking raccoons with big nutsacks and beating people to death. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's streaming on HBO Max. It's right there.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this movie. I also gave it a 4. And even though I'm not going to bump it up any higher, the more we've talked about it, the more I've really enjoyed it. It's especially like a lot of the thematic stuff. Like I know like Ghibli, especially Miyazaki, is very notorious for like preserve nature, nature is good, human bad, blah blah blah. But this has a level of like subtlety and nuance that you don't really even see in like Miyazaki movies. So
I definitely feel like Takahata had a hand of that being like a more nuance.
Which the fact that this man also did Grave of the Fireflies fucks with me because that movie is so sad, and this is like just fucking absurdly whimsical.
Yeah.
But yeah, check it out. It honestly, people need to experience it more.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be as underrated as it is.
I agree. I give it 4 stars as well, and the more we talk about it, the more I love it. That long runtime and how some of the kind of like how slow it is kind of a detriment for me. Mm-hmm. But again, loved it. You got to watch it. Studio Ghibli.
It's a great movie. There's very few like actively bad, or I would say bad, Ghibli films. I think like this is one that's worth looking out. That's when you talk about Ghibli films, certain ones come to mind right away, like Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away,
Kiki.
Things like that. I feel like this is worth bringing into that conversation.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, but it's
good.
It's
really
good.
It's a very solid film.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the quality of Ghibli's output where I'm like, this is like 5th down on my list of like Ghibli movies ranked, but the ones above it are just so fucking good.
Yeah.
The great body of work.
Something I want to mention too is that originally when I came up with this, because the choices made, John said in Sunday, you said Pom Poko. I told Colt, I was like, if you would, because he was thinking about what films to choose. I was like, it seems like we got a serious and we got a fun film. So I was like, you can choose a fun or serious, and whichever one you choose, I'll choose the opposite. So he chose Metropolis. I was like, okay, that might be kind of serious. So I'll choose fun. So Fantastic Mr. Fox. But man, was Incendies just further from anything like.
I mean, Metropolis was kind of serious.
Metropolis was very serious.
Of the 3 animated films, like Metropolis was like the more dramatic one, but like we have 3 ostensible family films, and you have Incendies, which is like this
very like emotionally powerful drama.
Yeah,
and so like one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, and like I'm not saying like the other films aren't serious. It's just that with the subject matter and the content warnings, it's very different. Like they all have their own things to say, their meanings, their themes, what have you, that are all serious, that are all worth
listening to and watching.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just funny, just like the juxtaposition of like all these films in each. Because like, what other place would you see like these 4 films compiled together?
Who knows?
This is the AYCH guarantee. It's just gonna be shit that we put together. We appreciate and it's worth watching. But like, I argue you have a hard time finding another show that has this level of range.
Yeah.
Woo.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this film festival. I know we did it. We ran the gamut, ups and downs, peaks and valleys with emotions and content, but we hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow us wherever podcasts are found. That's on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify. Be sure to like, rate, view, subscribe on all those platforms. Helps us out, keeps us visible, puts us in front of new listeners, and we always appreciate you when you do it. A little look ahead to upcoming events for this week. If you're listening to it the week it comes out, on Tuesday, Tanner has a sit-down conversation with another one of his wrestling Twitter friends. You know, he has a lot of online clout and a big reach, so be interested to see what this new conversation will be. And then on Thursday is a very special episode, a crossover edition between The Late Takes and Cajun Greatness, where it was an offshoot of Tanner's CM Punk special that came out last week. But you can't contain the Cajun Greatness cast. They ran so far off topic, so far over time. It came its own special. It discusses CM Punk. It discusses Donut. It discusses hot takes. And it's got a little bit of everything, and that comes out on Thursday, and that's a crossover between our two spinoff shows. So look forward to that. And lastly, you can follow me, Patrick, on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at John Lost His Name. And Art on Facebook at John Lost His Name Art.
My name's Colt. Follow me on Twitter at ColtD00. And if you finally want to see Tanner get his ass ate on audio, give a listen to that episode. I haven't listened to it, or I wasn't there when it was recorded. But from what I've heard from Cannon and other people that were there, Tanner did get his ass ate. It was sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Not the act of ass eating, but the attack on the ass.
You know, maybe you shouldn't come up with these metaphors.
I think those metaphors got a little mixed.
I would have used a different phrase.
I would have personally phrased that differently.
I don't know. Tanner gets his ass ate on the new one.
Yes, I'm not saying which one does it, but someone eats his booty like groceries.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Oh,
I
God.
would have said his butt would have been eaten.
Or just beaten. His butt was beaten. He got his ass kicked.
But that sounds like... that sounds like... go, John!
Fuck it. My name is John. You can follow me on Twitter at JONIBOY24 and John Owens on 12 on Letterboxd.
Thank you. I'm Winslow. You can follow me on Twitter at Winslow. You can follow my art, Instagram at WhatAWinsy. Go to my link tree. I have my Letterboxd and Goodreads in there for reviews of books or movies, what have you. Go check these movies out. So yeah, good movies. Also, I'm glad to know that anger is unleashed upon Tanner because we're all angry at Tanner. No
Tanner
reason.
sucks.
Yeah. Just fuck Tanner. Not really. We love
Not really. We love Tanner. Sorry.
But he's not here, so we can definitely pick on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, thank you all so much. Have a great day, and we'll be talking to you very soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Redeem these nuts.